We're going to be here a little while.
Yes.
So, of course, this is, I don't even know what podcast number this is going to be. 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going to be one of the early
10,
ones.
11, 12.
I can't put you that far down. I got a lot of good guys we got to squeeze in. But you've been one of the good ones for a number of years for me. I know who you are. How about you introduce yourself to the people so that they know who you are?
Well, I'm Chase Paduano. I've been polishing for 3.5 years.
Yeah, 3.5 years.
I'm from a little town in northeast Indiana called Rome City.
Did you say Rum City?
Rome City.
Rome City.
Rome
Okay.
City. Just got into this, and it's a little part-time gig for right now, hoping to...
So you're not full-time, you're part-time?
No, I'm part-time. I actually drive truck full-time.
So you're a truck driver full-time.
Yes.
Polishing is nights and weekends, or just weekends, just nights?
It depends. I get a lot of guys that bring me, rims, maybe a tank here or some air cleaners that I will work on after I get off work. I do little stuff during the week, and then I save for like trucks and bigger stuff for Friday, Saturday, Sunday
Save
sometime.
that stuff for the weekend.
Yes, for the weekend, so I know I can get it done.
Yeah.
And not leave their customer hanging with a half polish.
So you try to work around your work schedule?
Yes.
And your boss is pretty flexible with that?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't have any issues with you polishing on the side?
No, he is actually, I work for a great boss, and that's actually probably why I'm not full-time
The
right
only
now.
reason you haven't gone full-time, that was going to be my next question.
Because he hasn't gave me a reason to quit,
Because honestly, the only reason I went full-time is because of my previous boss. Like,
Yes.
I still talk about it, and I mention it to just about everybody I talk to, is if
Yes.
I wouldn't have had the boss I had and the attitude he had about his business, I'd probably still be a truck washer polishing on the weekends.
And,
I loved washing trucks.
I can relate to that, but mine's totally the opposite of you.
Every time you and I have talked about it, you always mention how good your boss
Yes.
is, and I always tell you, like, this could be a full-time thing.
Yes.
I feel for you
Yes.
because you are a very talented individual. You haven't been doing it all that long, but you caught on early and you figured it out. You figured out the system, the metrics that go behind it, and I feel like you could make this a full-time thing if you ever had to, if push ever came to shove.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing to have in your back pocket with a wife and kid at home.
Yes.
It's probably good extra.
Oh yeah,
Side
yeah.
money.
I mean, it's provided vacations for us.
That's an awesome thing.
We just went on a week's vacation up to UP, and it paid for that.
That's always cool.
And I like my toys,
Yeah.
So and it helps pay for them.
Don't we all?
So yeah, it's been, it's come a long way in 3.5 years. Shoot, I tell you, it ain't all been easy, but
Listen, I always say, like, the guys that say polishing's easy, or the business side is easy, they're skipping something.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not easy.
I can agree with that. And I'll be honest with you, Evan, it's really, to me, I do it for extra cash.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can relate to this, but me personally, when I take something that looks ragged, and when I'm done and it looks pristine,
Yep.
shiny, I get a lot of self-satisfaction out of that.
I try to tell everybody, like, it's instant gratification.
Yes.
Too. It's like, you either know if it's good right away in that moment,
Yeah.
or you know it's crap
Yeah.
right away in that moment.
I've
Like,
had some of them.
It's both ways.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
And if it's crap, and you know what you're doing, you know the route to fix it, or you know the road you have to take to get there. And if you don't, like I tell everybody, if you're inexperienced, start at the beginning and finish. Like, a lot of people, and you and I have had this conversation a few times, and maybe you didn't realize we were having that conversation, but sometimes when all else fails, go back to square one.
Yes.
Sand, and work it back to polish. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to always sand, and I try to avoid sanding at all costs.
Me too. I hate sanding. That's one of my biggest things about polishing that I do not like is sanding.
Oh, I hate it too. If I can avoid it,
Yes.
I try to avoid it like the plague. It's absolutely the worst part of our job.
Yes.
I'd polish a whole dump trailer if I didn't have to sand it.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not a big fan of big jobs.
I know. I know.
But it's one of those things that, like, I don't know. Anytime I got to grab a sander, I know I just doubled my day.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's gonna drag
I'm
my day
seeing that
out.
more and more as I get better at this, and it's like what you just said. I grab a sander, I know I just doubled my day. Or I pull up on a job and I see that I have to sand it, and it's just like, I just doubled my day. You know, it's double the work, you know, it is.
Yep.
And sometimes it's triple the work. I mean...
Yeah, no. And we'll touch on that a little bit later when we talk about this week. Yeah, you pull up on it and you're like, I might still be able to get away with 220. And we rotary 220 and it was like, no, grab the 180.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a long
And when
day.
you said that, I kind of went, you know.
Well,
So-
it adds 2 extra steps.
Yes.
And it took an 8-step process and made it a 10-step process, and those 2 extra steps added an extra. I think just the 180 on the one side was, I want to say 2 hours. It took us to 180 that one side, so it essentially added 4 hours, 2 hours each side. It added 4 hours to our 2 days.
Yes.
I mean, I always equivalate everything to time because I can't purchase time. Time's the one thing I can't purchase.
Yes.
And we've had this conversation too.
Yep.
Like, time's just the one thing you can't buy. So if I just added 4 hours to my 2 days, like, where do I recoup that time?
Exactly.
I don't. So here we are having a podcast.
Exactly. Hey, yeah. A little late, but hey, no, that's all right. But yeah, it's just it's been a good 3 years.
You've done some cool stuff in 3.5 years.
Yes, I have. Well, the coolest or the biggest thing I've done is what me and you worked on together, a trailer. I mean, I never had done a trailer. Had a lot of guys want me to do it, but I just never had the courage, I guess, to do it.
I'll let you have that.
I had.
I don't think it was a courage issue as
No.
much as, I don't want to say a confidence issue either.
I guess you want to know the truth? I didn't want to lose my butt on it.
Okay. So that's a different situation.
Yeah.
It's not that you didn't have the courage or the confidence to do it then. Because honestly, that's what I thought it was, is you just were uncomfortable doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You were more uncomfortable losing a bunch of money doing it.
Yeah.
And once again, you and I have had this conversation before that you were quite a bit more on the perfectionist side
Yes.
before you and I started
Yes.
hanging out and talking.
Yes.
And I
You're
kind
right.
of, I've kind of walked you off that ledge a little bit.
And when I came to you and spent 2.5 days
I
with
think
you,
it was 2.5 days. Yeah.
I think I got more out of that just sitting and talking to you when we were at your house.
Yeah.
And at night after we were all done polishing.
It's great because you can soak in that information.
Yes.
And then come to the house, sit down, and we can regurgitate everything that we went
Yes.
through for the day, and just kind of like soak in and bask in the day.
And I tell you this repeatedly, that I took a lot of what you said that night to heart about, because like you just said, I was trying to get everything perfect. And, you reiterated, you got to do what the customer wants and what the customer's happy with.
And that's one thing I try to train every new polisher that comes through. Everybody wants to do 200% on the job, and I get it. Like, I was that same guy, and I wish somebody like myself would have grabbed me by my hair and pulled me away from the first 1,000 trucks I did in the first 6 years I was in business, and yelled at me and told me, stop doing more than the customer wants.
Yes, amen.
Like, that was it is still a struggle to
It is.
Like, you saw me, even these last 2 days, it wasn't my customer. It was
I know.
your customer.
Yep.
So, like, I still, when your customer would walk around and he was looking at stuff, I'm like, are you happy? And he's like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've seen. Like,
And me and you were sitting there thinking,
and he's got 2 other polished trailers.
I know.
So he's seen other jobs.
I know, and I'm thinking, that trailer looked good to me.
No, it was good. It
You
was
know,
good.
But could have been better.
Considering where it started,
Yes.
that thing is beautiful
Yeah.
compared to where it started.
Yeah.
That thing was white. It was dry. It was miserable. We
Yes.
took 180, and 180 didn't touch it
No.
on a rotary.
And you were worried about that. You were
I
like,
was worried about grabbing my 120 that I have in my
yeah,
tote
because you thought,
and drop it to a 5-inch
yes,
to start at 120 because I know 120 is going to cut anything I throw at it.
yeah,
So I was nervous I was going to grab the
I
120.
just-
Because if I grabbed the 120, it's 120, 150, 180,
we just
220.
added 4 more steps or 2 more steps.
No, we'd have added 4.
Yeah, 4
Because
more steps.
120 and 150 and 2 of each.
Yeah.
So like we'd have added another 10 hours to 2 days.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and you and I, we got through the 180 on the rotary and the 180 on the DA, and I looked at it and I was like, you know, if I push just a little harder on the 220, I can break that edge. We're not going to get all the pits out,
Yeah.
but this customer wasn't looking for a $10,000 polish job.
There you go.
And
that's the thing.
If I wanted to drop down to 120, it had instantly been a $10,000 polish job.
When
Because
he-
like we'd have been stuck on it 3 days,
Yeah.
at least 3 days,
And you wouldn't have got to go to your anniversary.
and I'd have missed my
And
anniversary.
you would have been dead.
That's just how it'd have been.
We wouldn't have had Evan no more.
So we did what we did.
Yeah.
Customer was happy, and it's still a struggle because I look at it and I'm like, it's good,
Yeah.
but if we'd have gone to 120, it'd have been
But
great.
better. Yeah. It would have, he would
But this guy's not going and parking
No.
at the Dallas Truck Show or Louisville
No.
Truck Show.
And that's what he told me.
Yep.
And when he told me that, I was like, okay. And then we started with 220, and you were like, no, we're gonna have to do 180.
Because there's a level I won't go below.
Yeah.
Like there's a level I won't let myself put out quality below that level.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm
And
with
I
you.
knew 220 wasn't gonna cut it.
Yeah.
Like if we'd have just sanded 220, it'd have been below my comfort threshold. Even though the customer probably would have been happy with it.
Exactly.
There's a level I won't go below. And
But-
220 was where that cutoff was.
Just like you said, though, we wasted, not wasted, but
4 hours.
We had 4 hours.
Yeah.
But if you notice, I noticed it today. We blew through that other side.
Yeah, the extra sanding we put in yesterday on the 180 really made a big difference.
Yes.
Because the sanding was softer, the metal was more prepared for it. And the passenger side was worse to begin
It was.
with. So it's like we did put in, I feel like we put in an extra hour's worth of sanding on that passenger side, and I feel like that's why it came out so nice versus the driver's side that wasn't as bad to begin
No.
with, and we spent an hour less on it.
Yes.
I felt like if we just stuck that extra hour into the driver's side, it may have been a little better. But both sides match now.
Oh yeah.
Both sides look exactly the same.
And I always say you'll never, if there is a difference, you're never going to tell because you can't
You
see
can't
both
see both sides at the same time.
So,
Yeah. Well, I can agree with that.
and, you know, as we got going, I love Bill. He's a good guy, and he's treated me well, and that's why I wanted to do his trailer, and that's why I called you to
So,
see.
would you say, this is one of our questions I usually ask, is
Yes.
what's been the highlight of your career? Would you say that's been one of your highlights?
Yes, to polish that trailer with you. Yes, that's.
And I gotta say, I'm honored. I know we haven't talked about this yet. Nobody really knows. Like, you drive truck.
Yeah.
That's your full-time gig.
Yes, sir.
You polish on the side.
Yep.
You also build model trucks.
Yes.
Like, and these aren't just like cheap model trucks. These are legit model trucks.
handcrafted. You only use a few parts that are pre-made.
I mean,
that
most of this stuff you're making yourself, right?
Yes.
It blows my mind.
I'm actually working on your truck, and it might be 10 years from now before you get
Listen,
it.
I'll tell you till I'm blue in the face. Like, I don't care as long as I get it before I retire.
Yeah. And
So,
what you'll have.
You got like I'm fingers crossed. I'm shooting for 17 years. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm shooting for 55.
Well, I might have to be retired to finish it. So And I'm older than you, so
with the busier your polishing gets.
Well, and that's what I was going to kind of explain to you, that that is a hobby that started probably 10 years ago now.
Really?
Yeah. And
See,
I have
follow some of the model truck groups.
Yes, and that's how you knew me.
I had always seen you in those groups.
Yes.
And a lot of people were asking you all the time, like, where'd you get this piece,
Yes.
or where'd you get that piece?
I get that a lot.
And then I'd always see, like, you'd always say, like, I built it.
Yes.
Like, I made it out of, I took this shell and modified it
Yes.
and made it happen.
Yes, and that is, I could talk about that all day, because that's just a hobby that I get, and I love trucks. I love semis. My dad, my grandfather both drove. My dad still drives, he's an owner-operator. And I've just been around them all my life, and I've always been infatuated with them. And I always wanted to own one, and I never had the money to own one, so I thought, well, I'll just build my own.
It's wild.
That's cheaper, and I'll just, got into following Davis Brothers, seeing some of the custom rigs that they made.
Yep.
Vinny.
Yep.
Seeing some of his trucks.
Yeah.
There's we got some guys around my area that has some nice custom truck. I've actually built one, with his truck, and he bought it off of me. So,
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I got into that and started building them because it was cheaper than buying a real one. So, and that's the honest truth.
I'm kind of a, I don't know what to call it. Like, I'm not a full collector.
Yes.
But I tried to collect DCP. You're familiar with the DCP build?
164.
I try to collect the DCP 164 builds of trucks I've polished.
Yeah. Yep.
You know how hard it is to find?
And they're expensive.
And they're ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
when I started seeing that you were, like, hand making these things, I was like, these things got to be 10 grand. Like, I had no idea what they was even worth. So, like, when I asked you if you'd make one,
Yeah.
I was like, honestly, I didn't care.
Honestly, I wouldn't even know what to charge you.
Right.
To be honest with you.
Right.
I mean,
Like, I just want something cool to remember my truck. Like, when I retire, God forbid, my kids sell it to somebody. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's not very useful. It's a great marketing tool. But I moved some
kind of
trailers
like
around.
a real model.
It is.
Yeah,
It really is.
It is.
It's like it's a toy
Yeah.
for me. Like, I don't drive truck.
Yep.
I've never driven truck. I don't have any truck drivers in my family.
But you like them.
But I love trucks.
Yep. I'm
So
the
for
same
me,
way.
it's a toy. Like, it's a glorified lawn ornament. Like, someday I'll probably just park it on my lawn somewhere.
Then you
But-
know you've made it. When you park that thing as a lawn ornament in your yard, you know you've made it.
I just want to take the model that you build and set it on my desk. So while I'm editing YouTube videos or whatever I do in retirement,
You
I
can
can
look
sit
at
there
it.
and look at it without having to go out in my yard.
Yeah.
Look
And it
at
could be a good conversation piece.
And I'm
you know?
sure it'll be a great conversation piece. I
mean-
mean, my cab over has been a great conversation piece at many of shows. I actually met the guy that used to drive it while it was out in California.
Oh, really?
Like, it's a crazy story. The guy just happened to be at Waupun. He gave me all the stories on why the door handle's ripped on the inside, why the
I
pockets,
love them stories.
why the
man.
pocket's missing. Like, his time card was still in the rotary time card
Really?
thing in the dash, and it had his name on it. Like, that was the only
Wow,
reason I believed the guy, because it was like, how could you possibly know that the inside of my door handle was ripped with the door closed and why the pocket was missing? Like, how would you know that stuff unless you literally knew that?
Yeah.
So he gave me a whole ton of backstory on how paper transport came about this truck, why the door jambs are brown and the outside's blue
Yeah.
and white. Like, it was a root beer brown truck underneath that, and it's a big long story behind that. But it's a super cool story. And now, not only did I get a stack of papers 3 inches thick on every service record from the day it was brand new,
Wow.
but now I actually got to meet the driver that
Driver of
drove
the
it
truck.
while he was there. Like,
That's cool.
it's a cool piece of history. And I really think your builds are going to go down in the long term of what you've done. I think those are going to go down as some of the coolest builds. And a lot of people can't disagree with it. A lot of people agree with the fact that you're one of the better builders.
And I don't consider myself to be one of the better builders.
And humble's good.
And
Humble's
well, I know, but I really don't, because there's a lot of other good guys out there that can
There
go.
are.
I'm gonna not switch the subject, but I will tell you what, a project that I am working on that might take me 20 years to finish, but it's a 1/14th scale.
1/14th. That would be.
The truck itself is 2 foot long. That's
Whoa.
the truck, and it's a 300-inch wheelbase. It will be on air ride.
Really?
True air ride.
Like
with-
you could hook up air to it.
Yeah, it'll have a little micro air compressor, and I'll have a switch on. It's radio controlled 3-speed transmission. I'll be able to hit a switch and slam it to the ground, and then when I want to ride height, pump it up, and it'll go to ride height.
Really?
Yes. This has kind of been a low key thing because it's not cheap, and again, polishing is paying for that.
You know, I've looked into some of the radio controlled model stuff. Those things are expensive,
Yes.
like ridiculously
Yes.
expensive.
Everything's made out of aluminum and stainless steel. So
That's crazy.
a lot of my parts, me being the way I am, I can't have anything that I buy stuff that I need to make the basic truck, and then that's when
You work off
all
of that.
the stuff that I want to put on it, I make myself.
That's awesome.
So, like I said, it could be 20 years before I even get it running, but it's a 386. I thought about
An
I'm
Arrow.
just in love with 386. They're like I love the 379, but the 386.
Honestly,
Ever since Davis Brothers done that one.
Davis Brothers and Chad Berry, I
Yes,
tell everybody
both
those
of
were
them.
the two trucks
Yep.
that changed my mind
Yes.
on arrows are cool.
Yep.
Like
And
before that, I was like, they're okay. And Clinton Dix, like he builds some really
Yeah.
awesome stuff. Like
Yeah.
he even built a cool Volvo for
I know.
75 Chrome Shop. Like
Yep.
how many guys can say they took an Aero model Volvo and made it
And
look
ma-
cool?
ma-
You
yes.
know, like he turned it into a Harley Davidson edition, and it was just wild.
But ever
Davis Brothers and Chad.
Chad, and I fell in love with them trucks, and so I'm doing this truck, and is one of them, and I don't know what paint scheme I'm going to put on it, or if I am going with the Buzzkill, which I've already done that one for Davis Brothers. That was a
So that
pretty,
brings me back to my original point.
Yeah.
Was I'm honored that you put me in that conversation of the highlight of your career,
yes,
simply because I saw the model you built for Davis Brothers and that you handed them.
yes,
Like, that thing is insane. Like, so for me to be in that same conversation with you handing something that, how long do you think that took you to build?
almost took me 2 years.
So,
Almost took me 2
something
years.
that took you 2 years
Yeah.
to build, I'm honored to be in that same conversation for something that we did in 2 days.
Yes,
Like-
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I got to teach you some stuff over the last 2 days
Yes,
that
you have.
kind of put the last of the pieces together from what
I
you
think
didn't
so.
catch when you were up by
Yeah.
us. And there's going to be little things over the next 5 or 10 years of your career that you're going to be like, I'm stumped, can you help me out?
Yeah, and
And-
believe me, I won't be afraid to.
And I like taking your calls. You're one of the good guys. So like, I enjoy when you call because it's never just about the polishing. Like, I'll tell you one of my pet peeves. One of my pet peeves is the guy that calls me every week or texts me every day and like, hey, I don't know how to fix this. Sends me a picture. Show me how to do this. And it's not like, if it happens once or twice, like here and there, okay, I get it. People run into stumps, and I try to help everybody out. But when you message me every day, every time you run into a stump, it's like, it's not that I don't want to help those people, but it's like you have to learn some stuff on your own. Like, I will help everybody, but if I hold your hand the entire way, you're never going to retain anything or remember anything because I've given you everything. So next time you run into the same issue, like I have a couple guys in my DMs that'll ask me the same question once a month. And some of these guys message me every day and they don't take my advice and they do it their own way. I'm like, you've wasted 20 minutes of my day for nothing.
I'm gonna tell you, he's got a lot of DMs, guys. Jeez, I don't even know how he does it all.
But when you call, it's like, hey, how's it going? How's your family? Like, and
I was gonna.
and you genuinely care.
I don't think I've ever called you, and I could be wrong on this, but I don't ever think I've ever called you to ask you how to do something.
And
I've always only called you about buffs.
Yeah.
Like, is this the right buff I should be using?
yeah, that's a simple answer. We can get it over and done with. No
Yeah,
problem.
but I want to know when I call you, you know, how you're doing, and that's my first thing, you know, is to ask you how you're doing.
And
How's
listen,
your day?
Most guys get in a bind, and it's like, all right, I got to get this job done so my customer can get rolling again. I just need to know real quick. Can you answer a question for me? I have no problem with that.
I know
Like
you
if you're in a
don't,
hurry,
but
cool.
You're
Call me on your way home and be like, ah, dude, thank you. Like, I appreciate that. That's all I want to hear. And I'm good. I don't need much more than that. Just, if you're just taking out of the bank all day, every day,
yeah,
and not
you
putting
gotta
back
give,
in,
yes, you gotta give. It's give and
it
take.
hurts. Like,
And-
I feel like I take part of my soul out when I help some of these.
I
Like,
know,
and I want to help everybody.
I'm a good dude. I treat everybody how they treat me.
You are.
And I don't see. I look at you and I see, you know, what you deal with on your phone and stuff, and I don't know how you stay the nice guy. And that's
I separate business from life.
yeah.
Like,
You have to, I guess.
you have to. And it was a hard row to hoe for a long time to try and
I'm
figure that
sure,
out.
man.
Like, I didn't separate those two, and I take my work home with me. I mean, you were at my house for a few days,
Yes.
and you saw that, like, I will still answer my phone while
Yes.
I'm home with my wife and kids.
Yeah.
Like, I don't always, but I do a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like, I literally can't field every call that comes in, because, like, I wouldn't see my wife and kids.
I
ever.
know, and that's yes.
Like, you saw it, my phone rings, like, all night.
I know, and that's what floors me, because there has been times that I have texted you, and I'm not bashing you by any means, but it was 3 days later that he got back to me. Now, did I get mad at him? No.
Yeah.
I know he's a busy man, and I know he has a wife and 2 girls.
And that's why I appreciate you, is because you understand that, and you don't get mad when, like, I look at the text and I'm like, it's not one of those life or death things. I'll message him as soon as I get an open opportunity.
And usually when I get a text from him, and it's like, hey, sorry, I was busy, and then he'll answer my question. And I text him, understand, buddy, thank you for the info. I mean, I understand because, you know, being around you, the little amount that I have,
Yeah.
I see how busy you
Yeah.
are. And you're doing more than just polishing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. It's gotten into product and
Yeah.
YouTube how-tos and everything.
and your
else.
own stuff, Evan.
Yeah.
When I was up there, when I came up to your shop,
Yep.
and you were just starting that.
Yeah.
And you know you were testing stuff at that
Yeah.
time,
And
and
we
you were
test
really
product, too. That's-
you were on the phone a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we were polishing 2 trucks, but you were on the phone answering the
My
phone.
headset saves me so much.
Yeah, and
Like,
so I
if you
mean,
can hear me
he'd
through
be
the
over
grinder,
there,
keep going.
and I thought he'd be talking to me, but he was talking on his headset. You know, so I
Yeah.
mean, you were, I could see it, and you were under the gun because Louisville was coming up,
Yeah.
which we thought was going to happen.
It didn't end up happening. Yeah.
Which might have been a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I think it was. It gave me a good building year, and yeah, I think it gives us a good platform to move into next year.
And when that got canceled, I knew I was like, Evan's gonna be okay. You know.
Yeah, I know.
He's there's enough guys. You have enough.
We have a good support group.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's very loyal.
And I tell you what, I'm one of the loyalist guys.
Yeah,
I'm very loyal to anybody that is that helps me or is just nice to me. And you've been nothing but nice. And what have we known each other? Probably. How long ago was it that I met you at Lunar? I think it was like 3 years
It
ago.
had to be 3 years ago. I think it was literally right after you started polishing.
Yeah.
I didn't even know you polished.
Yeah.
I knew you as the model truck guy.
Yeah, no, that's what you said to me when I came up. You were like,
Yeah.
you're the model truck guy.
Yeah, when I saw you at Louisville that year, I was like, I've seen this guy before.
Yeah.
Like, this is the model truck guy that I looked up to.
Yeah.
I was like, I know I couldn't do it. So, like, meeting you, I was like, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm seeing the guy that's doing stuff, like, doing something real.
Yeah, and I was just like the model truck guy.
All right, so this transition for me is pretty simple.
I look taller than you.
You definitely are. We need to work on this. I need to like tilt the camera that way. But for the people that are listening to the podcast, they're not going to know that the YouTube version looks ridiculous.
Yes, yeah. It does. I'm like looking at ourselves and, you know, for once I'm taller than you.
Yeah, I'm a sloucher. I'm a terrible sloucher.
I
I think polishing has definitely made my posture even worse.
Yes.
Like you slumped over all the time. Me being tall, I hit my head on everything. So I think it's definitely made it worse. But nonetheless, you're definitely shorter.
Yes, I am definitely shorter.
I'm 6'7". You are 6 flat.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 6 flat.
6 flat. So I mean, it's only 7 inches different. It's not
Just
a lot.
7. I mean, shit. Yeah. Well, let me say, when you're cutting behind him and you know his reach, and
My
he wants you to go past his to come back, and you
Was that a struggle today? Like, did it suck?
No, because it felt like they were smaller today than what they were. Were you trying to help me out?
Yeah.
Were you taking it easy on me or
So
something?
yesterday I looked over and you were like, I saw at one point your arms were like shaking, trying to get over far enough, and I'm like, I'm terrible at that. Like, I have a very distinct pattern.
Yes.
And it's noticeable. And being tall, like, it's just comfortable for me. Like I've said in a couple of my YouTube videos, like, the width of your shoulders is about what you should do.
I was doing over that, okay?
My arms are fairly strong from 20 years of doing this, and I was a drummer. So, like, I have very good forearm muscles. So, I can span about another 6 inches outside of each of my shoulders.
I'm not getting that.
So yesterday I was doing my normal span.
Yes, you were.
And then I looked over and I saw you and I'm like, dude. And then this morning when I woke up and my shoulders were sore, I was like, I know you had to be sore. Like,
I'm actually not sore.
Really?
Yeah. I'm actually not sore.
Well, then I shouldn't have took it easy on you today.
But I appreciate that you did. Because I wasn't shaking near as bad today.
And I looked over today and you were just, your pattern was so smooth today. You were in your comfort zone. And I was like, I should have done that on the other side. I felt terrible. It was when I got to that first fender and I looked over and you were like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh man, I feel terrible. Cause like,
and that's when you knew every time when it was too long, like, cause I got the, you know, when you flip that buffer
like
that
pressure and you tip it just a little bit and it does that chop. Yeah, that's the worst. So it was like, I knew I needed to change it up.
And you did today, and I noticed it.
And it definitely helped you.
And I think we both went faster.
Yeah.
You know?
For what it's worth, like, you use less compound if you do smaller sections. Like, yeah. I just like to get, I don't know. I get in my zone, and I've been doing it. I'm so set in my ways. Like,
well, that's one thing you'll never hear. I will never complain. I just do my.
I know you just do it.
I just go.
I know I didn't complain once yesterday.
When I get, if there's a job to be done, that's the type of person I am. Let's just put our heads down and get it done.
And we were doing like, I was doing primary cut, cross cutting to get a little more out of a nasty piece we were working on.
Yes.
And then you were doing the secondary cut
clean
to
everything
up and move all the compound down.
Yep.
And
which, that was one thing that I didn't quite understand.
Yeah.
Now I got a better knowledge of that.
I felt like I explained it when you were up there.
But when I was up there with you, we were actually polishing customers' trucks.
We were working on customers.
So, yeah, basically, when I went to you, what was the first thing when you started polishing? What did I tell you? I know what I need to do. I know what I'm doing wrong. It was pressure.
Yeah, yours was pressure 100%.
Yes.
And honestly, 9 out of 10 polishers that I talk to, it's always a technique or pressure issue. Like, either your overlap isn't tight enough or your pressure doesn't match the overlap you're putting out. So like, if you have light pressure, you got to be really super tight. If you have heavy pressure, you really need to be super tight. Like, if you find that middle zone, you can loosen your overlap up a little bit because the pad is covering it. Like, most people,
if you don't put a whole lot of pressure on, or you put a lot of pressure on, the pad usually only touches
Yes.
like ½ inch,
Mhm.
quarter inch, and everybody's like, "Oh, I'm only moving up a quarter inch." Well, yes, even though your pad is only touching a quarter inch, and moving up a quarter inch sounds fine, but if you move up a quarter of an inch from where your quarter of an inch was, you're missing an eighth.
And
You're missing an eighth in between there, and that's the hardest thing for most people to understand. So once I watch people do it, or I hear it, I can hear it usually before I see it.
I can too now, since I've been up there.
Yeah. So the first thing you
Yeah.
did was you put the buffer on, and I was like, "Oh, it's a pressure issue." And you're like, "Wait, how'd you figure that out so fast?"
Yep.
And I was like, "I can hear it. Like,
Mhm.
your overlap was good. It just didn't match
And that's
the
what
pressure."
you've actually well, you started following me on Instagram when we first met.
Yep.
And then I started posting pictures of me polishing.
Yeah.
And I had my brother took some videos of me, and you were always like, you have great overlap.
Yeah.
You were like, your lines are tight.
That's the hardest thing for me to see. Like when people are having issues, and I know they're like trying, like you were. I always tell everybody, like, send me a video.
Yeah.
But it's still so hard. Like, your phone does not get the quality audio
No.
it needs to get to be able to hear.
Yeah.
Like, I can see that your overlap is great, but I couldn't hear that your pressure wasn't enough to cover that overlap.
And actually, I just posted a video, and you actually just commented on it.
Right.
Yeah, and I was like, oh God, I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
Having commented on my
Yeah.
video. So, and I wasn't at that time putting very much pressure on.
And
I could tell you that.
I try not to comment too much because some people look at it as I'm being a dick or I'm being a critic, and I'm not. Like, I think the comment that you're talking about was a video you posted up of you buffing,
Mhm.
and I just said,
Nice overlap.
nice overlap.
That's what you said.
And like, some people think I'm taking a shot at that, and it's not.
No, I didn't.
I'm giving credit where it's due.
Yeah.
Like, your overlap is great, but then when you message me and you're like, okay, so my overlap was great, why am I still getting these lines? And it's like, oh shit.
I know why
Like,
now.
I shoved my foot in my mouth because I told you it was good overlap, and then you're like, how come I have white lines? And I'm like, oh man, I feel terrible. But
No, I had it.
you and I had that respect that we didn't.
Yeah, I
we didn't
never,
have that
I never
friction, but
taken. Yeah,
I've had some people that.
and I understand. You do have people out there that are like that, but no, I never take. But my thing was when I went to you, and like I said, we were polishing because it was kind of just a spontaneous thing that
Yeah, it
I
was-
came up there.
You had some free time. I had some.
Yeah.
I kind of had some light schedule. We made
I mean, it was like it all happened like in a week.
Yeah.
Like you
and messaged me like, "What are you doing in 2 weeks?" And I'm like, "Shit, I'll make it work."
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, okay, I'll be up there, And then, we pulled that truck in, and I remember I was all suited up, ready to go, nervous as crap because it's Evan's
In your
car.
white outfit.
Yeah. No, I didn't have it then.
Oh, you didn't have it along up
Yeah,
there. That's right.
I wear it now,
That's
though.
right.
I know I'm
Tyvek suit. There's nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of polishers that wear Tyvek suits.
But
It's safer for you. I won't disagree with that.
well,
I,
I
just can't
do it
stand
just
how
to stay
hot they are.
clean, a little bit cleaner
Yeah.
than what you
See,
guys are.
I always hear two different ways. The guys that wear the Tyvek suits, half either tell me they do it to stay clean, the other half tell me they do it because it's safer. And
No,
they're probably not wrong.
the only reason I wear a full face respirator is to keep the stuff out of my eyes.
Really?
That's the only reason.
Yeah.
I hate masks.
I do it for, I hate masks.
I'm sorry, but I hate masks, and I wear the full face. I might as well put the things on if I'm going to have it on to save my lungs.
Yeah.
But basically, I hate stuff
I know
in my
guys that
eyes.
wear the full face masks and take the respirator,
Yes.
the filters off,
Yeah,
just
I've
because
seen
they
it.
don't want the eyeliner.
Yeah.
I'm like, just put the filter on.
And that's the way
you're there. Just finish it.
Actually,
out.
my wife says I look good in eyeliner. So, but anyway,
Mine
that's,
always did too.
that's not here.
Stop saying
Yeah.
that. We don't like eyeliner.
But I don't like it in my eyes, around my eyes.
I don't either.
Because I feel like if I do polish without a respirator, which I have
I
because
forgot my
sometimes.
respirator at home a time or two.
Well, you got to understand, a lot of the polishing jobs that I do, no, the guys don't have barns. So
Yeah.
I'm out in that 90-degree sun, and it gets hot in that thing.
I forgot my respirator on a trip to 75 Chrome one year.
Oh my gosh.
It was
Florida.
100 degrees outside in Florida, no mask. I was like, where can I go buy one?
Yeah.
Like, it was brutal. Like, Clint gave us his shop to use, but even out of the sun, like, it was just sweat rolling.
Yes.
And my eyes just hurt, and I'm like, I will never forget my respirator again. 2 weeks later, I forget my respirator on one of our big jobs. Like, such an idiot.
So it goes into, like, I'll start a truck with a mask on, but by the noon, I got the mask laying over there, and and I'm getting it in my eyes, and that's the worst because I feel like my eyes are scratchy for a day.
Well, your eyes, like.
So that's why I wear it, and now I pretty much wear it 100%.
Yeah, I was sweating pretty hard.
I was too. And
not today as bad as yesterday.
It didn't seem today was as bad as yesterday.
End of the day when we were working on the uprights, when I was doing all the uprights,
the sun was getting you.
The sun was hammering me, and I was like, I didn't start sweating until the end of the day. But yesterday, I was sweating so bad, like I got a couple sweat beads in my eyes, in the mask, and I'm like, I can't
And
see.
you were like trying to rub your eye, but you can't get
so I had
to
to
it.
take it off.
Yeah.
Grab the inside of my shirt, because the outside of my shirt was covered in sanding dust and crap. And I'm wiping it, and I'm like, oh my god, it burnt so bad. I
or
couldn't
another
see
one,
for like 2
what,
minutes.
you get an itch on the end of your nose when you got your mask on?
I actually figured out that nose cup.
Yeah.
If you slide it down a little bit, it's that one spot that you always get on like the inside of your nose. It'll get it. You just gotta slide it down, slide it back up.
It's weird how we talk about stuff, it's just crazy.
Because it's stuff that happens to us on a regular basis, It's like how do you get around it without fully taking it off every time something happens, right? But this still brings me into the transition of what really got you started in it. Like how long have you been doing the model trucks?
I think it's 10 years now.
So 10 years, and you were driving truck for how long?
I've been driving trucks since I was 19. I actually.
I don't want to age you, but how long is that?
I'll give you a backstory here real quick. I started driving ready mix truck, concrete truck, when I was 19, and
20 years ago.
Yes.
So you're a year older than me.
I'm 40.
Oh, so you're 2 years older than me.
I'm
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. But anyway,
we'll bleep that out. It'll be all right.
Anyway, sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
But anyways,
I'm allowed to let like 2 or 3 slip through.
Yeah, the FCC will say it, right? But anyways, I started driving a ready mix truck, and being new, I had steel wheels, and all these other guys had all aluminum. So I finally, after 2 years, got a truck with aluminum rims. Paint was horrible, beat up, but I sit there and I polished, and I sanded, and I polished, all by hand. All by hand. Yeah. I started with like 800 grit wet sanding paper, and I'd be out there with spray, just shining them.
Getting it smooth.
Oh yeah, and got the truck cleaned up, paint's half off of it, but I had shiny rims.
Yeah.
I mean, they were slick as butter, and I just always, it's kind of started there, and I would have guys ask me, how'd you get them so? And I'd be like, elbow grease, man.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, them are nice. And I always had shiny aluminum, and on all my trucks, and had a clean truck, and got tired of that.
Yeah.
After about 10 years of doing that, I got tired of it, and I went on YouTube and typed in how to polish an aluminum wheel, and lo and behold, Evan Steger came with.
So I started one of my best videos, as crazy as it is how to polish an aluminum wheel. Like, that video is one of my oldest videos too, and it wasn't really well done. It was shot on a GoPro Hero 3.
Yes, it was. I was going to say GoPro. I couldn't hardly hear what you were saying.
It was terrible.
But I could see what you were doing. I didn't know what you were doing it with. I mean, I know there was something round on the grinder.
Yeah.
And so I watched another video, and so then I went on a mission looking for buffs.
Sure.
In compounds. And I'll tell you, the first buff I bought was a white one with Blue Rouge.
Give him a shout out, whoever it was.
A Zephyr.
Was Zephyr? Yeah.
Zephyr. No.
It's fine.
I know, and you've always said that, and that's what I respect about you, Evan, is that you would never. If I would have came to you and said, Zephyr's readily available in my area, which it is, you would have said, bring it, and I'll train you on it.
Make it work.
And I love that about you.
And I know we'll catch some flack for this, but a few years ago, I was with another company that it was not frowned upon to bash other people for product. I've grown out of that, and I've learned that within the last 2 years, I started to realize like half the people that DM me aren't buying the same product I'm using, which is fine because I started with the same stuff they're starting with. So I got to thinking about it one night, and I'm like, why am I frowning upon people that are using the same product I started with? Like, I used Zephyr, I used, what's the stuff you can get at Peterbilt? Keystone. I used Keystone when I started.
I've used some of theirs.
And a little insight, I started the same way you did. I hand sanded everything, wet sanded it.
We were talking about
and
that.
hand polished. I used Blue Magic for the first 6 years of my
White
career.
Diamond? White Diamond?
No, Blue Magic was it.
Was it?
I didn't use anything other than Blue Magic. I still don't know why people hired me. Like,
I know,
I didn't even
you
use a
look back.
machine.
Yeah.
Like, I really need to go and I need to post up some pictures from when I first started to where I am now.
Oh, I can do that right now. Yeah.
It's not great.
I can do that now.
Some of my old pictures are not awesome. Like, I look back at some of that and I'm like, I cannot believe that guy paid me this much money to do that because
But you know what? He loved it.
He did. They did. They all did.
Yeah.
And some of the guys were like, hey, you know, if you do it this way, you could probably get a better result. And it was like, all of a sudden people started turning me on to buffs. And I was like, I don't want to kill myself because the 6,000 RPM grinder is going way too fast. And then all of a sudden it spiraled into, all of a sudden I figured out how to use it. And I tried watching YouTube videos and there wasn't content out.
That's where I'm lucky, is that, you know, we have people like Evan that post stuff on YouTube to help us out.
There's getting to be more guys putting out quality content on YouTube that actually, maybe they don't explain as well as they could, but they're at least showing their process.
Yeah.
And I think giving back to the industry that feeds you is one of the most gratifying and great things you can do. Like, I probably would have never met you.
No.
Being from, you're on the eastern side of Indiana.
Yep.
I probably wouldn't have ever met you other than maybe the chance possibility you and I crossed paths at Davis Brothers.
Yeah.
But without YouTube, I don't know if we would have crossed paths.
No, I don't think so.
I mean,
Well,
there's enough trucks in your area, there's enough trucks in my area, and we may never have crossed paths.
Yeah. And the thing of it, when the YouTube started, so I saw that you made the YouTube video, so I instantly, you know, at that time, just had gotten Instagram, so I found you on Instagram.
Sure.
And then it kind of went from there. Well, I had no idea, but I bought the white buff and the yellow bar or the blue bar because I thought it was cool. Honestly, I'm not.
And the blue bar is the most.
Yeah.
Like it's a great bar.
So I take it back.
But it's very picky.
Yes.
So it's the hardest bar to work with.
So I take it back. I got a grinder, and so I put the white buff on there, and I put the blue rouge on it, and I'm like, this doesn't look nothing like what
We adjust the camera. You can keep talking.
I just was like, this ain't nothing like what I just saw on this video. So so I started doing more research and spent a lot of money honestly just to polish my own rims, and got it. Continued to watch more videos that Evan had put out. And other guys too. I'm open to everything, everything. I tend to come back to you because I like your techniques and how you do stuff.
Yeah, we've become very similar in that.
Yeah. And and eventually I finally got it. It might not have been good, but it looked good in my eyes. Well, it looked good in other guys' eyes because then I'm driving this ready mix truck around with, these nice looking rims, and I'd pull into a truck stop and a truck driver come over to me. This is the nicest looking ready mix truck I've ever seen, Because once I got good, my first tank I ever polished was on our trucks is aluminum fuel tank, but they paint everything.
Yeah.
So I took paint stripper and
Strip the paint off the
and
tank?
polish the tank,
That's
and then
awesome.
the water tank behind our cab that holds our water.
Yep.
That's aluminum.
Yep.
So I stripped all the paint off that
Yep.
thing and polished that. So
That's outstanding.
and then our chutes were aluminum. So I
Yeah.
stripped all the paint off of that.
Really?
Yeah. So like everything on my I was going to
I've
strip.
never seen a polished chute.
Oh yeah, they look awesome. But when you pour the concrete,
Yeah.
acid in the
Yeah.
concrete, it's like putting acid on aluminum.
I bet it looks cool as hell.
Oh, it does. I mean,
Like pulling through a parade or
The only
going through a
thing
show
I-
would have been cool.
didn't ever get to do that. I wanted to do, and another guy got into it with me, an older gentleman, but I would do his rims for him. He was just like me, kept a nice truck and
Sure.
shiny rims. The fenders that go over the back of the drive axles
Yeah.
and cover the tags, them are aluminum. And
They-
I wanted to strip them and polish
I
them.
have one really good customer that has a show
Mixer?
cement mixer that
Yeah.
he uses just for parades
Yep.
and yeah, we polish everything on that thing.
That's
but
freaking
I look at all the other trucks we do for them, and like the wheels are trashed
Oh,
year
yeah.
after year after year because the acid just tears them up. And I look at the fenders and I'm like, I am glad he doesn't ask us to do these because
They
the
get-
show truck is nice,
Yeah.
but these things would be miserable to try and maintain year after year after year.
Well, and then it got into, hey, can you do my rims? It was the first guy that I polished for was he's an owner operator and he has a 379 Pete, and this is all later on, probably a year after I first laid a buff to a rim,
Sure.
and I think I had talked to you by then. So I was.
I think we talked before you started buffing.
Yeah.
Because you were asking me. I remember you were asking me a lot of questions about how to put compound on a buff, how to put the buff on the buffer, and honestly, some of the conversations you and I had led me to a bunch of my YouTube videos on how to put a buff on,
Oh yeah, because
how to apply compound to a buff, like.
Because I was scared, 6,000 RPMs. You know, and that's what I started with, Evan. I didn't even know about, your variable speed.
And
I saw you using the 6,000, so
Yeah.
that's what I used.
I jumped straight into 6,000 when I started. Like I used a variable speed 5,000 Milwaukee for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
but I got into the 6,000 game early before a lot of other guys were doing it and before it was cool. I also had 5,000 Black & Deckers. Like I wish I could find.
The Black & Deckers.
Yeah, I wish I
'Cause they
could
don't
find
build
a
them like
pallet of them hidden somewhere. Like 5,000 RPM is the perfect speed for polishing metal. Like if you ever get a chance, if I ever find one, I will let you play with it. But a 5,000 RPM grinder is the craziest thing you'll ever use because I don't know what it is about 5,000 RPM, but the metal just like falls into place.
Really?
It's like a magic wand of some sort. And I do know a lot of polishers that will say the same thing. A lot of the older guys will say 5,000 was like
5,000.
the sweet spot. I don't know why. It just is.
So then it's just grown into, I polished that truck, and then he told a buddy, and then he told a buddy, and then the next guy told two buddies, and here we are 3.5 years later, and I got a waiting list of 25 guys on my
That's
phone.
awesome.
I mean,
I love hearing those stories.
and you know what? They're all around my area.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally, I turn down work more than, I got about a 25, I'll go 35 miles out away from my house
Yeah.
to polish.
And you're as
something.
busy as you want to be.
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I just kind of stay in my own circle.
Yep.
And guys come to me, like Bill. I'm a little past my 35, but me and Bill kind of.
He's one of those good customers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I polished a couple. It started with him. He's, as you can see today at the end, I was like, oh God, here we go. He's getting to be picky.
Oh, listen,
But I'm fine with that.
I've been doing it for 20 years, and it's just a big job that was normal. Like, every big job I've ever had. Like, this guy's getting ready to fork out whatever that big dollar amount
Yeah.
is, whether it's $1,500 or $10,000. Like, they're at that point where they're going to hand you money for what you did.
Yes.
And not just, like, $500 or $600 for doing a truck, because
No.
most guys don't flinch at that.
No.
And I'm not saying $500 or $600 isn't a lot of money. I'm not saying that at all. That is a lot of money for most everybody.
But for a guy to get his truck polished for $500-600, that's and a lot.
That's fair.
That is fair, and a lot of guys, we're the only time it gets polished,
Right.
and so they don't want to do it.
Yeah. So $500 or $600 is
Yes,
like, I would rather
they'll pay
you
that.
the $500 or
Yes,
$600
and I
to
hear
do it.
that all the time. That I'd rather pay you the $500 or $600 than me have to do it on the weekends when I'm done driving, because they just don't want to do it.
But I do find, like, when I'm doing just a truck, guys are a lot less picky when it's a $500 or $600 job.
Yes.
And they're like, I didn't do it myself. But when you're on these big projects where, like, guys are going to be handing out $1,500 to $10,000, and I'm not saying that's what this week was, but
no.
when you're in that range, that's just where my head's at. When you're in that range of $1,500 to $10,000, it's a significant amount of money.
Yes.
And not necessarily that they get nitpicky. It's just they look at things and they're like, you know, if I'm spending this kind of money, I wish that was done, or I wish this was done. And Bill was very understanding with what the cost was going to be for all the extra stuff that we did and the extra amount of time it took to get there. And you and I talked about it today for a little bit, that when I said, you know, this was what I would have wanted to charge for what we had initially talked about doing, not all the extras, just what we had initially talked about doing. It was in rougher condition, and it was one of those things where, like,
And I think he understood that.
I've been burnt enough that, like, I'd have ate it. I'd have just been like,
I would have too.
I'd have been like, my bad.
Yep, I would have too.
And I'd have been sitting
I would have
here.
ate it because I told you it was better than that.
Well, and I just sat here and ate it with you and not felt bad about it, because
Yeah.
I told you a dollar amount that I can do 90% of the trailers I do at that price. But there's that 10% that this trailer
Yeah.
fell on.
I know, and it's always.
It was like,
Ugh.
when I pulled up and looked at it, I was like,
When you got out and you said,
I
"Oh,
shot Chase in the foot on this one." But then I thought about it and I'm like, he did say this thing was really good. Like, this guy takes really good care of his stuff. And the guy does take really good
Yes.
care of his stuff. But this thing had been acided for the last 10 years.
Yes.
It was like, oh man, I shot you in the foot unintentionally. So it was like,
But it all we did.
It all worked out.
We put our heads down. We did it.
it all worked out.
And Bill saw what we were doing, and saw how we were bringing. Because I even think he thought it was bad. Really, honestly.
Oh yeah.
So, and he understood once we started talking to him and
Yeah.
telling him what we were dealing with.
And when we had that conversation where, like, I try not to give the customer too much, because I don't want them to feel like they have to do one thing or they have to feel another way. But it was like, when him and I were sitting there talking, and I usually try not to say it, but it just kind of slipped, that this was the worst trailer I'd ever done. I didn't mean it like it was a bad trailer. I meant, like, this is a very good condition trailer for the year it is.
Yeah,
It was just super
06.
dry from acidizing it for the last
And
10
I
years.
think he
He
realized.
didn't catch that yesterday.
No, but I think he did today.
But today when he was like, you know, you do a lot of, like, really brown, nasty trailers. And I'm like, yeah, I do. But they've never been acided.
Yeah.
And that was when it was like, ah, okay, now I understand. Like, the acid was the problem, not my trailer. So
yeah, and I think he
just snapped out of it.
And you saw his other trailers. They are.
Yeah, his other trailers are beautiful.
Yeah, I mean,
polished from the factory. He's maintained them
Yeah.
since.
and
He's
they
had
look
them done.
good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're beautiful.
So, I think once he realized that, and then you know, me and you got together on the dollar amount, and
Yeah.
I told him,
Yeah.
and he's like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
And
like, yeah.
he got everything he wanted. Like,
and
he
that's
got,
the thing.
we did all the extras that he
Yes.
wanted done.
That helped us out.
Yeah,
That
no,
helped
for
us
sure.
out.
And that's why I said, like, when he grabbed that back door and he was like, "Can you just hit this?" I'm like, "Yeah, if I got blue tape, I'll do it. Like, I'll make it
And
happen."
I didn't, and that's one of the things I'll ask you about, because
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
That's
no,
another new thing that I learned quite a few things in these last 2 days. Again, and they're not big things, little things.
And
Little
honestly,
things.
sometimes those little things make bigger things in the long term.
Yeah.
Like, you don't realize how often you use tape.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
how much extra cleaning.
Until today, or until we were polishing that trailer.
And it's how much cleanup work you got to do with that tape.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm glad you got to see that a little
Yes,
bit
I
this
did
week,
see it.
especially on a big job like that.
Well, when you did that, we used the blue tape
Yep.
on that
Yep.
on that piece, and
Yep.
you were hitting it with a buff,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it didn't even phase it.
I'll ram it home on blue tape all day long.
Well,
like, blue
I
tape
know
doesn't stick as well on fresh wax,
Yeah.
but it's a lot less cleanup.
Well, I got a roll of yellow, so I'm gonna use it, but I'm gonna be careful about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was just another thing, a little thing that I learned, and
Pardon my running.
but yeah, Bill was, I think, very pleased with what we accomplished.
you could tell.
I am. I mean, to stand back after we put the boards back
Yeah.
on, the side kit back on.
That made a
it-
big difference.
yes, it
That
did.
black against the shine.
I'm
Black
glad
shine,
we did.
black shine.
I'm glad we did that.
And
We weren't looking forward to doing them,
yeah,
but
they
I
really
think
weren't
you-
as bad. Just
I think you're like me though.
yeah.
You don't want to do it, but you just do it.
Yeah, once we were in it, it's like, even though I forgot my headset today and I was really like,
I know, and I felt bad.
I was out of my zone for like the better part of the morning during sanding because like I just hate sanding. I hate
Yep.
it.
I'm
But
with you.
once I got out of the sanding, like polishing's where I love. That's my go-to zone. Like I'm happy when I'm polishing. So like,
You want to know what? Be honest with you. When the whole time we were standing in that trailer, I kept thinking to myself, "All right, four more steps, 3 more steps, only 2 more steps, Chase. 1 more step, and I'm going down with 600. And I'm like, you're halfway home."
I'm always counting down my grits. I'm
Yeah,
like,
me
"Oh,
too.
God."
And I'm like, good God.
I cannot wait till this is over.
And then, because and that's another thing you didn't know about me. I used to do body work.
Really?
Yeah, in high school for 4 years I worked. 3 years. Freshman you can't do it, but when you're
That
at
would
my
explain why your sanding pattern's so tight.
I was just gonna tell you that.
It all makes sense.
I
now.
did 4 years of auto body
Wow, that's crazy.
and worked.
You and Keenan have that in common.
And that was Corey told me about that.
Really?
Because I talked to Corey Thompson about auto body.
Yeah, he
or
does a
paint.
lot of his
Yes,
own body
he
work
does.
in his shop. Yeah.
So I did that, and that was the thing. I love painting. I love to paint.
I love watching people paint.
Yes, and
I'm not very good at it.
I surprisingly I painted multiple trucks at the company I work for.
Really?
And then when in the wintertime, when I drove ready mix truck, because the wintertime we get slow around here, we
Yeah.
get winter.
Yep.
And instead of going on unemployment, I would repaint mixer trucks.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so
That's awesome.
auto body's a lot like polishing.
Yeah.
I compare it to that because
Painting, anyways. Yeah.
well, just auto body, because you got to think when you're painting or you're doing auto body, 90% of it is in prep.
Prep work. Yeah.
Prep. What's polishing?
Yeah.
Prep.
We did
Prep is
5
key.
hours,
Is that
6
what they
hours
say?
of prep for an hour's worth of polishing.
Exactly.
If
And
you
that-
prepped right, your polish goes easy.
Exactly. And when you prepped right, your paint job will be
Yep.
spot on.
Yep.
So I compare it with that, and that's when I'm sanding aluminum, I'm counting down the grits just like you or anybody else, and waiting to put that buff on there
Yeah.
for that first cut. There's just something about that first cut.
I'm just itching.
Yeah.
Because if I put that buff down and it turns black, I'm like, bah, starting over.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's just something about a freshly sanded piece of aluminum, and you got right. You know it's got the shine. You know, I'm gonna put this, and that first cut across there is just something about that.
So this is your first big job.
Yes.
I will tell you, my worst part about doing big jobs, and this is probably something that I hope a lot of people pay attention to, is because, like, as you saw yesterday, I don't like doing a test spot. Because a test spot,
I've noticed that.
a test spot always looks great.
Yeah.
You can always make a 6-inch or a 12-inch
because
section
you're concentrating on
look perfect.
Yeah.
Because you've concentrated on that one area.
Yeah.
But when you're working on a big project, like you saw yesterday, if I sand the one side, I cut that one side.
Yeah.
When it's in my shop, I'll sand the whole thing because it's a controlled environment. I know it's not going anywhere, and I'll polish it the next day, or I'll polish it that day if the sanding went really easy. But when I'm working on something big like that where it's rough, I will sand one side and polish one side. It'll lead me into my next question, but that's one thing I've gotten burnt on was I got a big job like that, and I thought, my sanding looks good. I'll sand this side, I'll sand the other side, and then I'll start polishing this side. Well, I sanded one side, and I thought it was good. I sanded the other side, and I thought it was good. And I started polishing, and it turned black.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, guess what? I get to start back over at the beginning.
Which I was going to ask you that, because I suggested we sand the other side and get all the sanding out of the way. Because, again, I don't like sanding.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we're
Let's
sanding,
let's just get it over
with one day. But you're like, no, we're going to cut and
because
cut
if we'd have sanded that other side yesterday, and we'd have started cutting this side today, and we'd have turned black right away, like we
we
didn't,
would both been mad.
we'd have both been like, well, I guess we're gonna spend all day Wednesday buffing because we're gonna spend all day.
And we
today
couldn't have done
re-sanding
that.
Everything.
We couldn't. We got to get you home.
We'd
So-
have been re-sanding everything
I
today
know.
to do it tomorrow. So
No,
it was like
I'm
my experience saved us from having that issue. Now, granted, we did sand it good, and we didn't have to worry about that. But that's one thing that killed me was I sanded the whole entire thing. I thought it was great, and I just don't do test spots. Test spots
Like
have
you
burnt
said,
me in the past as well.
I've done test spots before, and you're right.
Yep.
I mean, I'll agree with you that you concentrate on that 6-inch spot,
And it gets hot.
and it gets hot, and it looks good, and then you go to start doing. Let's say you did it on one spot over here, and then you go to here. You got a long span in between the straps, and it don't look nothing like what you
Yeah.
did
Because
so-
you used compound on a foot section and the compound stayed hot versus a 3-foot section. Now it's like,
I gotta
it
say
don't
no
look
to
right.
that, yeah. Or you sit there and just cut and cut, And
So if there's one thing I hope you pulled away from this week, I mean, I know you grabbed a lot in the last couple days, but if there's one thing I can tell you is the reason I did one side
Yeah.
and then cut it was so that in case it didn't come out right,
we could correct
we only did one side. We can correct that one side before we start the other side.
and we know what to do on the other side.
Yeah, and we did.
Yep.
Even from cutting the other side yesterday, I was like, if I maybe spent like an extra hour on the 180, which we ended up doing on the other side, if we'd have spent an extra hour on the 180, it probably would have cut even faster. And honestly, yesterday the cut and color didn't take long,
No.
but I knew it could have we could have got it done probably an hour faster by spending an extra hour in sanding, and it would have come out that much nicer. So we did that on the other side.
And like I said, he was happy, I'm happy, you're happy, we're all happy, and that's
No, it worked out great.
all it counts. All it counts.
But that leads me into the next question of what's the biggest thing you got burnt on? Like something you went into, you were like, you know what, I'm gonna make good money on this thing, and then you got there and you were like, that is not great.
Well, I've been burnt multiple times because I did catch on to this. Now, I don't ever take anybody's word for granted, but I did a couple trucks, and see, where I live, there's nobody that polishes.
Right.
So, the trucks that I'm getting have never been polished, and they're owner
I
operators.
feel like
and-
that's a lot of Indiana.
yeah, and yeah, you're right. And,
Yes, Casey, all the times I've been down to Indiana, it's a lot of sanding and a lot more work.
Yes, and so guys would call me. Yeah, I got a 379 Peterbilt, 2 tanks, wheels, and I did never ask, what their aluminum looked like,
Mm-hmm.
and then they asked my prices or what the rough estimate would cost them, and I take that back. I asked them what their aluminum looked like.
What condition it's in.
And they said, "Oh, it's not bad. It's not bad at all." Okay.
It's clean.
I took their word for it.
But they've been cleaning it with acid for 15 years.
Pulled in on the job, and like, oh my lord. So I told the guy the price, and ended up doing it for that price.
Yeah,
but
you're
had
like
to
me.
sand.
You're a good guy. You eat it.
And that's been multiple times. But now I guarantee you call me, and you tell me your aluminum's good, I don't even take your word for it.
Yeah.
You know,
Send me close-up pictures. Close up.
I actually, Evan, I don't even tell them that. I just assume I'm sanding it, so I tell them the sanding price.
Really?
Yeah, I tell them the sanding price.
See,
and then if I get there and I don't have to sand it, we're golden.
See, my problem is like, a lot of people always ask, like, what's your ballpark?
Yeah, I get that.
That's the worst question for me.
I know.
And I don't know if I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I've gotten grumpy about that question, and I caught myself the other day, like, kind of being a dick to a guy, because I was like, I hate that question, because, like, if I ask you to haul a load to California, can you give me a ballpark? Well, I don't know, is it 14 wide, 15 wide, 16 wide? Like, do I need permits? Like, no, I just want a ballpark. Like, what am I hauling? I don't know. I just need a ballpark for what it's going to cost you to get there. Like, there isn't really a ballpark. Like, it could be, you know, $2 a mile or $10 a mile. If I got to pull permits the whole way, it could be a $10, $20 a mile kind of deal. Like, is that the ballpark? And I don't want to scare people away either with telling them, like, yeah, it could be $100 a wheel. My $100 a wheel is rare. My average wheel is 25 a wheel, but if your stuff's crap, I'm not going to tell you 25 is in the same ballpark either, because your wheels aren't close to 25. So, like, there just isn't a ballpark. I price everything out by the piece.
I do too.
Based on what I have to do to it. Everybody wants that ballpark, and I'm like, there just isn't. Like, I don't estimate anything anymore without seeing it. So I have everybody send me pictures, and then I tell them I want close-up pictures. Send me a picture of your worst wheel, your best wheel. Because everybody, you and I talked about this earlier today, everybody sends you that driver's side wheel because it's not the ditch side.
Yeah, exactly. And the ditch side gets sandblasted crazy more.
Which is another reason why I charge by the piece.
Yeah.
A lot of times, driver's side wheels are 25 a piece, passenger side wheels are 30, 35 a piece because I got to sand the lip.
Exactly.
And if I got to sand the lip, that's an extra, 50 cents, $1 in 2 or 3 sheets of sandpaper.
Yep.
So an extra $1,
and that's your
$2
most expensive
plus the time.
material in your time.
Yeah.
That we use really.
So
I mean,
if I'm adding 5 or 10 a wheel, like it's enough for me to cover my costs plus still make the amount of money I want to make on the wheel. So
let me tell you a quick story here. I had this kid. He called me. Wanted his truck polished. He's a farmer and he's a young kid, and grandpa and dad were totally against this. So kid, most are. And this kid was getting in. He just graduated. He's going in on the farm. He likes to drive the truck, the grain, So he wanted it shined up. So he called me, and I'm talking to him, and they got a budget, So he's like, how much? And I'm like, well, how bad's your aluminum? And he's like, I said, take pictures of it.
Yep.
And because I'm, young kid, and I've been in his shoes. I want shiny shit when I'm driving. So, anyways, so he sends me a picture, and of 2 rims and his tanks. And I thought, well, the tanks I can just cut and color them. They're not bad. The truck's it sits inside. It holds great.
Sure.
So I give him a price. And I always go high. Always go high.
I tried to too.
And I think it was like $800. And he's like, oh. And I said, well, do you need me to talk to your dad? Because, and your grandpa, I'll sell this to him, But he sold it. So I go over there, and I'm thinking I got to sand all these wheels and the step covers. And I get over there, and I walk in. He had taken a picture of the original rims on this 94 Kenworth. The rest were brand new. Not brand new, but had been running. So I'm like, well, heck, guys, this ain't bad. You only got to sand 2 rims, So when it's all said and done, we're sitting, and his dad watched me the whole time, And when it's all said and done, his dad cannot believe what I had done to this truck.
That's awesome.
To transform it.
So that one actually worked out good for you.
Yes, and that's why there is, you do get some of them sometimes where it's a good inning. So at the end of the day, I give them the bill, and we're way under what they thought. And they were miles from ear to ear, and now I do the truck once a year.
That's awesome.
So,
I love hearing stories like that. Too.
you know,
So
I covered my butt because I saw them pictures of the rim.
Yep.
And then it worked out that it was better, and it was cheaper for them, and now it's a customer repeat.
I'd rather be the guy that bids high and comes in low
I'm
than the
that
guy that. I'd rather bid it and either eat some or come in above expectation.
Yeah.
Than bid it low just to get the job
Yes.
and then come in high. I hate. That's the worst part about like going to a body shop or a dealership or any of that stuff is I hate going in there and then having them tell me, yeah, it's a $165 deal, and you get there and the bill's $500. You're like, what happened?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, oh, we ran into this issue or this issue. It's like, I get it, but you quoted me 165 to get me in here, and now you got me in here, and you suckered me for $500.
Exactly.
Like, I don't ever want to put my customers in that position, so
And
I'll eat it.
Yeah, well,
Unless you deceitfully and purposely sent me the wrong pictures to get me there.
yes.
Because then it's a negotiation.
Yeah.
Or I'll go home. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to be there for that.
But I'm with you. I'll eat it and, get it the truck where it needs to be. And if you eat it, that guy, he'll be back.
I built a lot of long-term customers on eating crow.
Yeah.
Like I've talked about this in other podcasts and YouTube videos with people that even my documentary, I ate a lot of years of sanding to get to the point. I always say, a lot of people tell me right now, like, you don't sand a whole lot of stuff. A lot of the stuff you do is nice. Dude, for years I sanded garbage.
You got your clientele, you got your repeat clientele good, and then it's easy to maintain.
And I sanded a lot of that stuff for
Yeah.
years and didn't charge what I should have charged because I wanted people to start coming in twice a year so that I didn't have to sand anymore, so that I could just polish. Like, polishing is what I enjoy. I hate the sanding part. So if I had to eat a couple years of not charging as much as I wanted for sanding just so that guys would still come in twice a year, I did it so that now I can reap the reward of just buffing a lot.
And I'm getting that circle is coming full circle for me.
Because now that guy that had you sand 2 nasty wheels and now he comes every year,
Yep.
you don't sand that truck every year.
And a lot of my customers are starting to be repeat.
Yep.
And so I've already got them. So I know all I got to do is cut and color.
Yep.
You know.
And that's where you start making the money too. So, quick little excerpt, the business side, that's where you start making
Yes.
an actual business out of it and not just a weekend hobby. Because now the trucks that used to take you a full day on a Friday or a full day on a Saturday, you can now do 2 of them in a Friday or 2 of them in a Saturday, and you can still charge the same amount, and now your profits went up, your income came up.
We had that conversation
Yeah.
up at your house.
Yep.
You said that remember we were talking about money and how I buy stuff. And
Yeah.
if you notice what happened just before you came
Yeah,
down.
you stocked up. That was awesome.
I made my first big purchase
Yep.
finally, and that's what you're saying. I'm starting to make money now because that circle of guys that I have that are repeat customers that
Yep.
are good, I'm starting to see that.
And now you have a good stock of inventory, and now maintain your inventory.
Yes.
And when you're down 10 buffs, you order 10 more.
Yep.
And keep a stack of 20 buffs laying around at all times, because now if you're not rush ordering something, you're saving money on shipping. And that's the biggest thing. And especially for this trip, like I came down, so it saved you the shipping
Yes.
on top of that.
That
so
was great. Yes.
you're even out there.
Yes.
You know, that saves you that. But I will talk in a future podcast about what I told you when you were up there on why I made that decision to change.
Yes, you do. You do need to talk about that.
It's one thing I haven't talked to everybody about in any of my YouTube videos yet. It's a very important piece to the puzzle of why I do things the way I do and why my business is the way it is.
That's what he's going to tell you guys is probably the biggest thing that I took to heart. And I mentioned that to you several times.
And honestly, the guy that I talked to today, Joe Clementi from Wheelie
Yes.
Polished, it's going to be a conversation in his podcast.
Cool.
Because, like I told you today, Joe from Wheelie Polish is the most business-minded polisher I know. He's not necessarily a polisher, and I'm not saying that in a bad way.
Yeah.
He is a businessman that makes money from polishing. I don't know if polishing is his passion, and Joe, if you're listening to this, I'm terribly sorry if I'm murdering this and butchering it, but he's very good at polishing. So it's not that he's not
I've
good
seen
at
some
it.
of his stuff.
He is a businessman,
Mm-hmm.
and polishing pays well,
Yeah.
and he's found a way to tailor that to his lifestyle. And the story I want to have in his podcast is it's probably the best place for it, just because that podcast will be a lot more business orientated, and a lot more of the information that him and I talk about will fit into the narrative of that conversation you and I had at the
Yeah.
house about this important piece of information. So I'm not trying to just super hype this up with everybody, but it was what changed my business and my life and my situation to what it is. It was the most...
I think it changed mine.
It was-
Or it's on its way to changing mine.
Honestly, seeing you where you were yesterday and today, I feel like you are. Because you took what I told you and you've streamlined it into your own business. And I see it in your posts as well, because like I can tell stuff's not taking you as long anymore.
No, it doesn't.
And you're listening to your customer and doing what they want.
Yes, and that's the biggest. Again, you know, I keep saying it, but it comes back to them nights when we were done polishing, you know, your customers' trucks, and we just went back to your house and we sat there for an hour or so and just.
And I can't wait to explain this to everybody, because for me it was one of those like I was an idiot moments. Like, and I feel like a lot of beginner polishers are struggling with how to break through to that next level. And I feel like like I said, I know you're happy with the place where you work, and this could be just a part-time deal that pays for your vacations for the rest of your life. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because you yourself are happy and your family's happy with what you're doing right now.
Well, let me after today, or after the last 2 days, and not just because you were here. I've really enjoyed you being here.
Because you work solo. I think that's
Yeah.
one thing we haven't touched on yet.
Yes, I am a one-man band. Like I said, it's just me, myself, and I. I haven't found, I guess, that guy that I could trust,
Yep.
because I'm pretty picky.
Particular.
Yeah, and I'm old school, new school. I grew up with a grandfather that always told me if you want something done, you just do it yourself. You know, so, and my wife will attest to that. Like, I don't ask for any help.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm moving something, she'd be like, "You want me to call my brother?" No, I just do it myself.
That's why I was here, because I knew if you asked that you needed like some help, I knew it was important.
There you
because
go.
I know you don't ask very often.
Yeah, and that you know, I don't ask because I could probably called you 80,000 times, you know, but I didn't want to. I always felt I don't want to bother you because
Yeah.
I know you're a busy man.
I appreciate that. You know that.
So I just, like I said, one-man band, and appreciate you taking the offer to come down and help me. But I really enjoyed myself doing that. I kind of, when I was doing it was just managing me by myself. I
Yeah.
know you were there, but
Yeah.
I could see myself doing stuff like that full time. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, no, you
I
could.
mean, it's just self-satisfaction.
I really look forward to this same conversation with Casey
Yes.
from Casey's Detailing. He is also a one-man
He
band.
reminds me of myself. I mean, I look at him and I've seen he does
Phenomenal work.
Yes, he does.
Phenomenal.
And I see him as he's one-man band.
And he does quite a few big jobs.
Yeah.
He does grain hopper rails. He's got a couple big customers for that. He does Lucas Oils.
I was going to say Lucas Oils.
van trailers, reefer trailers,
Yeah,
whatever they
you
are.
know, yeah.
He does all the rails on those solo. Like, dude, that stuff wears you out. Like, listen,
Well, I've heard nothing good about Casey. Like I said, I was at the truck show.
nothing bad about it.
Or, yeah, nothing bad.
Nothing but
Sorry,
good
Casey,
things.
if you're listening to this.
I knew what you meant.
Yes. I was at Shipshawana, and there was, I think, 4 trucks there that he had polished.
Yep.
And the guys that I was talking to had nothing but good to say. And they were asking me about, how I do it, and they're like, "You're just like Casey." I'm like, "Yeah, we're one man shows, man."
I've been.
So,
Not many people know this, but I've been begging Casey to come work for me for like 2 years. Because honestly, I enjoy hanging out with him. He's one of those just genuinely good-hearted people that just cares about everybody and everything. So like, he's one of those guys that like, I would enjoy working with him every day because his personality is so positive,
yeah.
and it's addicting. Like, when you're around him, you can't have a bad day.
Yeah.
And thanks to Keenan and my no bad days, like, I try to focus on it all the time, but Casey just makes it simple. Like, you're the same way. Like, even hanging out with you these last 2 days, like, not a whole lot really gets to you. So it's like, you just kind of, it's just kind of easy to hang out with and just be around and
When
get
I'm
stuff done.
doing something that I love or I like, I'm, and I'm sure we're all like this. If we're doing something we don't like, we just, you have a different attitude.
Yep.
But I really enjoy doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of people look at me like, and you probably get, "You're crazy. Why do you do that?"
Oh,
You
dude,
know?
people tell me all the time, like,
And
why
it's
would you
like-
want to get that dirty?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. It's hard to explain.
It's hard to explain, and a lot of people don't understand it.
And some
but-
people try it and they're like, yeah, not for me.
I know a lot of people, and a lot of the truck drivers, the owner operators try it, and they a lot of them that I polish for say, "Oh, I polish, but I don't like doing it."
Yeah.
And I'm like, good. That's why I'm here.
Yep.
So
Thank you.
Um,
Appreciate it.
yeah, we appreciate it. And a lot of guys give me their stuff. I'll get done polishing their truck, and they're like, "You want all this stuff?"
I'm never gonna use it
Yeah.
because you're my guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, because I don't use this. I use."
There's
time
been a
to-"
few times.
Well, what do
where,
you
like,
use? Time to shine. Well, what do you suggest to maintain it? Time to shine. Where can I get it? Oh, well, will you just get? You got a bottle I can have? Well, now I do, guys. I got a bottle.
Yeah.
So
I said I can't even tell you how many times like somebody called and was like, "Can you squeeze me in?" And I'm like, "I'm terribly sorry. I'm booked like 2 months out." And they're like, "Can you sell me the buffs and compounds?" I'm like, I can. And I have a bunch of YouTube videos. You can figure out how to do it.
yeah.
And they buy it, and like 4 or 5 times now in the past like 2 years, they brought the stuff back and was like, "Here, take this. Get me on your schedule."
Yes, please.
I'm not doing this.
Yep.
And it's like the buff's like half broken. And you're like, that's how far you made it? Like, I'm not talking down on it, but it's like,
no.
dude, I give everything a fair swing. Like, I wasn't very good at painting, but I tried it for a year, like.
Yep.
So a little part of my life that most people don't know is I worked solo for 18 months. And believe it or not, and most people aren't, and most people are going to call me a liar, but I did in that 1 year. Most people know, if you've watched me on Instagram long enough, like, I count how many trucks I do every year. I track how many wheels we do all the time. Oh man, my nose is just killing me tonight.
I don't know. It's something in this room. Dude.
It's gotta be. Like, I was fine until we like got to the hotel.
Yeah, I was too, and
But-
I'm the same way.
Nonetheless, I did 500 trucks that year solo. Now, it was my full-time gig.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't do anything else other than polish trucks. I averaged almost 2 a day.
Wow.
Well, it was a truck and a half, so 500, 365 days. You don't work the holidays. It's like 350, half of 350 is what, 175, so
Yeah.
that'd be 525. I think my actual truck number, I always say 500 because it's a good round number, but I
Yeah.
think the actual number was like 507 or 509, something like that. It was just over 500. So I call it 500, but I averaged a truck and a half a day by myself, solo. And like, not all of those trucks were great.
No.
I just knew that, like, I shouldn't say knew that. Looking back at it, that year set me up for a lot of good years in the future.
because I knew that if I could do 500 trucks by myself, the year that I did 1,100 trucks in a year, and 11,000 loose wheels that year.
Yeah. That was like your record year, wasn't it?
That was my record year. And I don't think I honestly, without hiring a bigger crew, I don't know if I could do more than that. Because...
But at that time you had a good guy, right?
Yes, I had 2 very good guys that year. My wheel machines were running around the clock. I had a guy working nights. I had a guy working days. Like
really?
We will calculate that out sometime.
Yeah.
It's like 11,000 wheels in 365 days.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. It's like 30 wheels a day.
Good gosh, I'd like to see.
Plus the trucks coming in and out.
Yeah, yeah.
But we had some big contracts, and my cousin and I worked all winter long on those wheel contracts, and we were doing...
That was the concrete truck wheels, right?
Concrete truck wheels.
I remember you doing them reels, and I'm like, my rims don't look like that.
Well, you saw my whole shop, right?
Yeah.
Like, that one bay is 60 feet long by 15 or 18 feet wide, maybe.
Yeah.
We had concrete mixer wheels. The one time we had 350 or 400 wheels in that one bay.
Jeez,
they were stacked 5 rows high.
Wow.
And it was door to door, front to back. They just kept dropping them off that week.
Dang, dude.
We were knocking out 80 to 100 wheels a day.
God.
7 days a week. And just, we couldn't
Covered
get them
in
done fast
I remember.
enough. Covered in concrete.
concrete.
We didn't have concrete remover back then. We just sanded them.
Yeah.
We were blowing through materials like it was
Yeah.
crazy. We were doing $30,000-$40,000 weeks of...
Gee.
You're talking $5,000 a week in materials.
Yeah.
Like...
Well, I can't even imagine how... I've sanded concrete off of aluminum.
That
And-
hurt.
yeah.
$5,000 a week in materials.
I can't even imagine how much sandpaper you burned through.
It was brutal. Like, absolutely brutal. Like, I just remember looking at my bills at the end of the month, and I was like, dude, my customer was paying me like net 30 or net 60, and it was like I had 40 grand in materials, and they owed me 120 grand. And it was like,
Oh. Yeah.
I was dying. Like, we were so cash strapped tight that winter. Like, I didn't know what I was even gonna do. But it was because of that year that I worked by myself that we had a good inventory and we had a good stock. It just depleted my entire inventory.
Yeah.
But I had that inventory there because I took all my money I made that year, dumped it into our house and our business. So, like, yes, we had bills, and we had a modest house. I mean, our house wasn't huge. It's not the nice place that you saw now.
No.
And our place was nice. I shouldn't say that, but
Yeah,
it wasn't,
you actually showed me
it wasn't what it is now.
where you used to live.
But that year of working by myself, I proved to myself that I could do it solo if I had to.
Yeah.
And I apologize to Kavan and employees past because when they don't want to do something, it frustrates me a little bit, and I kind of get pissy about it, but I'm always like, then don't do it. I'll do it myself.
That's the way I am.
Because I know I can.
Yep.
Like, do I want to? No. I much rather have employees. I love having Kavan around. He's really come around to the point of, even now he's running white wheels sometimes.
Yeah.
And he's a very talented hand polisher. If I tell him to do something, it bothers him when stuff's not perfect.
Yes, I've noticed that about him.
So, like, I enjoy having him around because he's now putting his best foot forward with my business in mind. So that's a good thing. I love having employees because I love talking, which is why, of course, we're doing this podcast.
No. I told you I'm the same way.
So
you
I
get
like
me going, and it's hard to.
I like having somebody around
to talk
So
to.
that year working by myself, the worst part was not having somebody to talk with driving back and forth.
Yeah.
Like, because I do a lot of mobile work still.
Yes.
So, like, I work within, let's just say, 60 miles. So, like, that hour drive home, it was like, yeah, I listen to music all day in my earbuds, and then I listen to music on my way home.
Yeah.
Now we're busier. Most of my drives consist of phone calls, talking to people, but it, that year was brutal because I was just by myself, and I told my wife, like, I love you, and we were getting ready to have kids at that point, and I was like, if I take this year and you and I don't see much of each other, I could probably set us up for a good life. And it did. That year helped us out. That year and a half helped us out a lot because we took all that income and just dumped it into our savings, into our business, and everything was better off for it. So by the time we had our kids, we weren't struggling week to week. We've had some struggles. I mean, I won't take away from the fact that we've had some of these struggles over the years, and we still have struggles now with our own product line.
Yeah.
We dumped a lot into that this year. A lot of my life savings went into inventory for our own product line, so put us back on the burner again. But it's time to hunker down again and just make it happen.
And it is. I mean, I love everything that you've come up with. I think it's user friendly. Is a good.
It's top quality user friendly is
Yeah.
what I was shooting for.
No, yeah, and I agree. It's top quality. I mean, since I've switched. You know, you sent me, or actually not sent me, but I bought my first buffs and compounds off of you. I noticed it. I told you I noticed a difference in quality.
I wanted something that an average consumer that doesn't do it a lot could still use, but a professional would still want to use.
Yeah.
I feel like there's two parts to our industry, right? There's the one side that tailors to the high-end detailers and polishers, but doesn't give a crap about the consumer. Yeah. And then there's another side that cares just about the consumer because that's the far bigger market, so they don't care about the professionals as much.
Yeah.
I wanted to find that middle ground where the product quality is good enough that a guy like yourself or a guy like Casey or any of the other polishers in the country would want to still use, but they could be a distributor and sell it to their customers, and their customers could still use it.
And that's what I'm. Even guys. I've sold Lumi, you know, to the do-it-yourself. You know, a guy that wants.
And that's selling in my lap for what it's worth.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
Yes.
To Amblos for that.
Yes, and awesome product. Awesome product. And well, last night I had a guy text me, Lumi's awesome. You know, so. And he was polishing his livestock trailer with it. The whole side. He had half done. He polished it with Lumi.
Did I ever tell you this story? So, I was developing the heavy abrasive metal polish.
You told me you were working on one because I had asked you about it.
I had my show finish figured out already.
Yep.
I was working with the chemist to develop the heavy abrasive stuff. A lot of the stuff I had learned in previous years. I don't know. It didn't translate. Maybe I was saying it wrong, or maybe I didn't hear it right. But a lot of the things I thought I knew about a heavy metal polish was not realistic.
Yeah.
It did not actually work in the real world.
Yeah.
So I started over, and we were testing and testing and testing, and nothing was working right. And Michael and Lucas just happened to stop by for a training course.
I know.
And he's like, "Here, try this." And I tried it, and I was like, whoa. And then a week later, he's like, "We want you to be our exclusive distributor in the U.S." And I was like, "Oh my God, you got to be kidding me!" Like, I threw my stuff in the trash, and I said, "This is the best stuff I've ever seen."
And it goes together.
It like fell in my lap. I was like,
I'm glad it did.
if there was ever like a higher power that has this like hand in something, that was it for me. Like, I needed that at that moment because that was the one piece of our puzzle that we were missing for Louisville last year. Well, this year. And it just happened to fall in our lap.
It makes me speechless, honestly. I mean, I can't even explain. This stuff's amazing. I mean, it's saved my butt, and it's helped me
in rough situations.
Yeah, I mean,
me too, quite a bit.
You know, you're doing a tank with a step, because a lot of guys have steps so they can get up on their deck plate. And you're doing that tank, and the products I used before, well, I even told you this, I hated even to try to polish them by hand because it made it look worse.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I could buff a straight, you know, follow the contour and make it straight.
I always say graze
and leave it like that.
gray's better than white.
Exactly. And leave it like that.
Yeah, I hate
and it
leaving
looked
it that
better. I hated it, but it looked better than putting that polish over because it didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
Now, with the hand gloves, jeez, you can about get it. And guys, when they're watching me, because I always, you know, if a driver or owner operator's there, I'm like, check this stuff out. And I'll do that spot.
Yep.
And then when I wipe it off, they're like, are you kidding
Yeah.
me?
I had a
What
guy
is
tell me
that?
the other
And they're
day-
looking at it and like, yeah, but I've never heard. I said, you haven't heard of it
Because it's European.
It's European,
Yeah.
and they're like, how do they get? I said, I don't know what's in it. Some magic concoction.
There's a magic wand in there,
Yeah,
and they
something.
won't tell me what it is, but
And
I'm excited to figure out what it is someday.
they're like, where can I get this? So you know, obviously tell
Yep.
them where they get it, and I know a couple guys that have bought it. So, and then I put the show shine over top of that to show them that
Yep.
really brings out the finishing touch on it, and they can't believe it because the tank looks like I actually got the buff in between that step.
Yep.
And
I had a guy the other day ask me, how come you just don't use that on the whole tank? I'm like, 'cause you still got to scrub.
yes,
Like,
yes.
I would
Yeah.
rather use a buffer. I only use it here because I have to.
And the top of the tank's under the buffs.
Yeah.
Guys cannot believe the reflection. Actually, they're like, I need to paint that under that. You know what I'm saying? They see where the paint's chipping off or their wires are hanging. You know, they didn't do a
Yep.
good wire job, so
Yep.
they're like, I need to tidy that up
Yep.
now. You know.
It's funny.
So yeah, that's a good product, and that's amazing how that fell in your lap.
Yep. Not just divine intervention, whatever you want to call it. It just happened at the right place at the right
They
time
came
in the right moment.
shortly after I was there. They were like in
Uh,
November, wasn't it? November.
They were there between Christmas and New Year's because
Yeah.
they spent New Year's in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So they came in. I think they spent 2 or 3 weeks here in the U.S. and they toured all the big places. They stopped by Zephyr. They stopped by Renegade. They stopped by all the big places because they wanted to learn more about their craft. Like
Did they use buffs over there? Did they use buffs and compounds over there?
they were all like sewn buffs and old school stitched buffs. They were more interested in the airways because that's the new way. Everybody kind of goes that route. Or I shouldn't say everybody. It's the newer way to do it, and that's the more, I think, more efficient. People will argue that, and it's okay. It's my opinion. I feel like.
We're all having.
Yep.
So are they making airways over there?
They are. Yeah.
Are they?
So
Okay.
they're selling their own brand of airways and compounds, and
Okay.
they kind of changed it up from the conventional buffs. Like that was the biggest thing over there. Just standard mops is what they call them, and felt buffs, sewn buffs, that kind of stuff. And they still use quite a bit of that because the Lumi works really well with
I saw their videos
the white
using,
buffs
yeah.
and stuff.
Yep, I saw
And
that.
I've started doing that myself as well. Like when I get a tank that comes in with the end caps really burnt, I'll wipe it with the Lumi first, and then I'll cut over it like we did in the fender wells
Yeah,
and stuff.
and that.
That
Yes.
stuff works really well.
Yes.
Just get a little moisture in there,
Yeah.
and it helps. I mean,
Yes.
we had Kavan hand polishing some rails before we even cut them because it made life easier.
Yes, it did. I mean, I couldn't believe the rails for no sanding and just cutting them.
Just
you
getting
know,
that little bit of
Lumi
moisture in there helps.
cut and then a secondary cut.
Yep.
It was amazing.
Yep.
So,
Exactly. Yeah, it worked out really well. Yeah. I was super impressed with it without sanding. It turned out great, and like I said, it's just getting that little bit of moisture in there instead of having the aluminum so dry that it soaks up all the compound.
Yeah,
a lot of
well-
people will send me pictures and they're like, "How come this turned black right away?" Because the aluminum's dry. You need to either sand or hand polish first so you can get some moisture into it.
well, that was a new term that I learned in the last 2 days.
And I
was
use that term a lot, so I'm
Dry
sorry to people that
aluminum.
don't understand it.
dry aluminum. Never would have thought it, but now that he pointed it out to me, I can see
Makes a lot more sense.
it does make a lot of sense. A lot of sense.
Well, that's good. I'm glad I make some sense sometimes. Because sometimes I feel like I talk to people and they don't listen, and it's like, do I just not make sense? Like,
No, you make sense. You pretty damn good teacher.
and I've said this a number of times. There's some polishers out there that don't like me because they think I've given them the wrong information to their questions. And it's not that I've given them the wrong information to their question. I answered their question. just what they were trying to learn wasn't what they asked me, and I wasn't a mind reader enough to understand what their real question was.
And that's kind of why I didn't ask you too many questions about techniques, or because me personally, I'm a hands-on type of guy. Like, you could sit there and tell me all day how to do it, but as soon as I see you do it, then okay. Like when I came to your shop and we started polishing that first truck, and you sat down to do that tank, and I saw you cut that tank, and I instantly thought, I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing wrong, and it was just by watching you.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll give a little shout out to Almost Chrome. Same thing happened to me when I went to go learn stainless. He was the first polisher that gave me a chance to come and see something done. Like, and actually,
he's a hell of a stainless polisher.
Yeah, stainless. I mean, he does buses all day long.
Yeah.
And I was really struggling with stainless. Like, I had reached out to a bunch of polishers to try and figure out what I was doing wrong, and it was one of those, like, if I didn't see it, I wasn't going to figure it out. And I was at Peter's place on the first bus they were doing, 10 minutes, and I went, I know what I'm doing wrong. I'm treating it like aluminum, and it's not aluminum. It's the furthest thing from aluminum.
It is the furthest thing aluminum. And I'm pretty well self-taught on stainless. I don't think you've ever... I mean, I did them breathers.
You got it figured out before you got to my shop,
Well,
so I
yeah.
didn't need to teach you anything.
Well, I did them breathers, and like I said, I was nervous as crap. And I'm like, Evan, every time I get done with one, Evan, come here and look at this. Chase, that's spot on.
And that
I'm
mill
like,
finish stuff you had me look at this week, like, you
Yes.
killed it. Like, if you could do mill finish to the level you did, like, that thing was... I had to look hard to find something wrong with it.
But I wanted you to pick it apart. I mean,
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't have asked me to pick it apart, like, I wouldn't have looked at it all that close, and I've been like, yeah, it's perfect. Like, the clarity's absolutely great. The hash marks are super minimal, like, almost non-existent.
I was pretty proud of them.
You should be.
I was. Them were in a that was another problem. Just
I've
something
seen polishers 15 years in, 20 years in, that couldn't do on those pieces what you did on those pieces.
And I was just, I was proud of them. And I actually, when I gave them back to him, I honestly thought they looked like crap because when they're on the truck, they're at a different angle.
Yep.
And when you're polishing them or you're looking
Right
at
over
them,
the
I mean,
top
you're going like this in the sunlight, so you're seeing every.
You've been making love to them for how long?
Yeah.
How many hours? And you're like, you know every square inch of that thing, and you're like,
yeah. So I gave them back to him, and then I hadn't seen him until we went to his shop
yeah.
because the truck's been being put together, and when he backed it out, and I'm like, wow, I did do something right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I was.
It's not that people do things wrong. It's that you haven't finished the process.
Yeah.
So it's not wrong. It's just incomplete.
Yeah. And
I
completed that.
That's probably the first time I've been able to explain that. Like, I tell everybody all the time, like, you're not doing it wrong. You just... I could never finish that sentence. I'm like, you're not doing it wrong. But literally, just now, I came up with that. Like, it's just incomplete.
And that's good.
Sometimes
I
the
completed
polish is
that.
just incomplete.
I
Oh,
completed
dude, that thing is complete. Like,
all that is.
I had to, like, get it in some shape.
I know you're
look
like,
at it.
well, look at this, and I'm like, yeah, I see that, and you're like, well, if you would have done, you just.
It's just technique change.
Yeah, exactly.
And honestly, that thing, it was perfect. Like, most people are not going to see that. I only knew it was there because I used to make that same exact mistake.
Yeah.
Like,
and now I know, and I'll change that,
Yeah.
and still do the same process that I
Yep.
did to get it to where it was.
yeah. And you're going to
to
kill it because you're just going to be that little step better than the next guy next to you. I feel like 2 hours isn't bad, especially when you're grinding and you're just listening to a podcast.
And that's or driving down the road.
Or driving.
Yeah, I do that. That's when I listen to them.
Yeah. Alright. So my last 2 questions. Well, my last question, the next one's yours. If you could go back, if I brought you a time machine, set it right here in this room, and you could go back to yourself 3.5 years ago, what would you tell yourself to put yourself in a better position then so that it would put you further ahead now?
Wow, this was hard.
I know, it puts you on the spot, but...
Probably and you might not think this, but probably get to know you sooner. I don't know. Talk to you more sooner than what I did. Like, because like I said, I never really asked you about techniques. I think I would have sooner wouldn't have been afraid. It wasn't that I was afraid. I just didn't want to bother you and be that bug, you know, or fly you're trying to swat away.
You know, on topic, but kind of off topic. Zach Cambrone and I talk about this a lot. He mentioned it when he was at one of the first shows with me. He's like, people look at you like a celebrity, and I'm like, I don't understand it. Like, you've been around me long enough now that you know I'm just another guy.
Yeah.
Like, I appreciate that people put me up on another level, but they don't need to. Like, I don't need that part. Like, I don't need the fame. I could still be happy with a YouTube channel that only had 1,000 subscribers. I'm grateful for 15,000, 16,000, 20,000, 100,000, whatever it ends up being.
And that's what I like about you. And I will tell you what drew me to Evan when I first met him. And I was starstruck by you, and I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
You were, I thought.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
But I went to Louisville, walked up to the booth, and
there was 100 questions you wanted to ask, but you didn't.
And I didn't. But you gave me the time. You introduced yourself.
I always try to.
And you said, and I asked him one question. I was really on 22-inch rims, getting in around the holes. How he did it. And he said, hold on just 1 second, and I'll get back to you. Just let me go back. I got to talk to this guy real quick.
I don't remember who I had to talk to, but I remember it was like a brand new distributor or...
Yeah, something was going on at that time
Yeah.
at that booth.
Yeah.
And
actually, I know exactly what it was. It was one of my old vendors that I used to buy a lot of product
yeah,
from.
I think it was.
And they had stopped by to see me. I hadn't seen them in like 10 years, and they had something for me. I don't remember. They gave me something, and I was like, I knew they didn't have long, and I was like, I was hoping... Excuse me.
Bless you.
I was hoping you would stick around and wait.
Well, and that's the thing. If he was what I'd say Hollywood celebrity, we'll just say that to be funny.
So dumb.
I know it's dumb, but it's funny. He would have never came back. He would have forgotten.
As soon as I was done with that guy,
yeah, he came right yes,
back.
And he did. And he got down on his knees on Davis Brothers' truck. And
used my hand.
Yeah, and he was showing
as a grinder.
Yep, and he's like, you just get in and lay that buffer down.
This angle.
Yeah.
And this angle.
Yep, and then you showed me that, and we stood up and talked a little bit more, and then you were like, hey, are you hanging around? And I'm like, yeah, we'll probably be out with the Davis brothers out, you know. And he's like, I'll talk to you then. And you know what? He came out there, and we all shot it up. And then we left. Me and my dad headed home, and you guys, and that's when...
That's right, your dad was there.
Yeah, my dad was with me.
That's right, I do remember that.
And that's when I knew this guy is down to earth, a good dude, because other people would have brushed you off, or brushed me off.
And honestly, the whole reason for expanding my YouTube channel was I felt like people were asking general questions, but wanting college grade educations out of small questions. And it was like I felt like I had enough guys that were like, you're just not telling me something. And it's like, it's not that I'm not telling you something, it's you asked me a question, I answered the question. You were looking for an answer to that question. I gave you that answer, but you were looking for this answer, not the direct answer. So I started expanding on my YouTube channel and like going off into tangents, and some people were like, oh my god, your videos are so long-winded. It's like, yeah, well, I don't make videos for...
Well, this is my thing. If you want to learn something, you're going to watch the video.
And I don't make the videos for like 50,000 people. I make the video for that one person that's going to watch it and get something out of it. Same with these podcasts. I got to give a shout out to... The guy's name was Michael James.
Oh yeah,
or something like that.
Yes, that was awesome.
The whole reason I made this podcast was so that other polishers
could relate to other people in the industry and see that we're all going through the same struggles and we're all going through the same things, and your conversation with me might bring up a topic that somebody else was wanting an answer to, and now they're getting it.
Yeah.
And I think his name was Michael James. If it's not, I'm terribly sorry, but he sent me this long thank you note.
It was awesome. He read it to me. And
I read it to him.
I was like, hell yeah.
And he said it was about Zach's podcast. I sent Zach the message as well. Zach was like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, who sent you this? And I told him who sent it. And I was like, this one person made all these podcasts worth it for me.
Yep.
Joe Clementi calling me today was like, dude, you hit it right on the head. Like, this is exactly what I needed to hear at this moment. You telling me, like, this podcast hit it on the head.
Yeah.
Casey telling it to me. Like, all these guys reaching out that are like, this is exactly what we needed. Like,
I've needed it.
did we trust you, Evan, that yes, you went through those same struggles? Yes. But hearing you talk to other polishers that are going through the same thing, it's like, oh, shit, we all did go through the same struggle.
I'm still going through it. I mean, I still go through it.
And I hope that listening to these things and watching the YouTube videos and listening to the podcast help you struggle less.
Yeah.
That's all I hope for, is that you guys don't have to struggle as hard as I did.
Or think that you're the only one that's
Yeah.
struggling.
Right.
So, yeah, and I don't know what else I would go back. Of course, I'm a little
I gotta
new
look
to.
his name up because that's gonna bother me. Keep going.
I'm new to it still, so. But yeah, I would tell myself not to be afraid, so-called, let's air quote, afraid of you. You know what I'm saying? And would have asked more.
His name was Michael James, so I did nail that on the
Yeah,
head.
you did.
And he sent me
Man, it was a good.
a giant paragraph
Like I could never write that to you.
about a polisher that is going through the same struggles, and it's great to just hear that other people are going through the
Keep
same
going.
thing. And he's just a polisher trying to provide for his kids, and he's a perfectionist at heart, and that's his biggest downfall. Like, honestly,
I am too.
99% of the polishers I know,
Yeah.
the biggest reason why their business isn't growing crazy is because they are more of a perfectionist than what their customers are. Stay tuned for that wheelie polished episode, because I think
That'll be a good.
I think it's going to change the game for a lot of people. And if it doesn't, maybe it changes 2 or 3 jobs a year and gets you started on that path to expanding your business and making more money out of what you're already currently doing.
I think another good thing too is, well, as you saw with me and you, I saw it with you too. We take the time, we set the grinder down, we talk to the customer.
Yep.
And get a feel. I get a feel when I talk to them for what we can do, and as we progress through that job, we got a feel for what he wanted.
Yep.
And we knew what we had to do to make him happy.
It can be a double-edged sword.
It can be.
Like, sometimes I like to treat my customers like family, and I know you do as well.
Yes, you're right.
So sometimes, like, and especially when you're working solo, like, if you pull yourself off that job for like 30 minutes, you kind of like relax a little bit, your body gets rid of that muscle memory, and restarting is oh, it's brutal, right?
We were talking about that too while we were doing that.
So it's like, I try to find that delicate balance where, like, yes, I need to talk to the customer, and especially when he first walks in, like, you want to greet him, you know, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, like, when you're in the groove, it's got to be like, all right, I'm sorry, I got to get back to this, because if my muscle memory changes, the whole pattern's going to be screwed up. So.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
So, what's the last question? I get to ask the question.
The last one is, I'm going to let you have one.
All right. Well, I got a couple.
But that's fine.
And I want you to explain
I've had
the
you in
tape.
the hot seat this whole time.
I want you to explain the tape.
Okay, so tape, you've been...
Now, hold on, let me go. I'm using yellow tape. All right. And
The stuff from the auto body supply store.
yes.
Yeah.
And
It's a quality tape.
It's a quality.
Very good tape. I will not take it away from that. I personally used to use it as well. I stopped using it. It's not that much more expensive to buy the blue Scotch or blue Duck brand tape. Not duct tape, Duck brand, like
Yeah.
quack quack duck
Yes.
brand.
Blue tape.
The blue painter's tape.
Yeah.
Yeah. I buy mine from Walmart. I buy it in bulk. I usually buy it on their website so that I can get it in bulk instead of just like the couple packs that you get in the store. When I'm in a pinch, I buy it in the store.
Yeah.
It's like $6 for 2 rolls or whatever it is.
Mhm.
The yellow stuff is like $4 for 2 rolls, or
I think I got that whole roll for like $12.
$12,
Yeah.
and there's 6 rolls in
6
there.
rolls. In.
So it's still $4 every
Yeah.
2 rolls. So the main reason I do the blue is
and I found this out.
the
today.
adhesive. So if you're putting it on stuff that's been freshly waxed, the yellow is the only thing that's going to
Stick to it. Yes.
because the blue is designed not to stick long term.
Yep.
So the yellow, if I have it taped off on something like a grill, if I bump that yellow tape, it's gonna leave a black spooge mark.
Yes.
Like, I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
Like, adhesive comes off.
It has to be the heat
Gets the pad
transfer.
hot, I don't know.
Transfers to that tape, and it just makes that adhesive gooey.
Really gooey.
Really gooey, and
So-
it's a pain to get off.
I always say, like, you have to use mineral spirits or carb cleaner to get it
Yes.
off. So I always found myself with a ton of cleanup time. Once again, leads back to, if you're selling time, I'm buying. Like, I can't buy time. So anything that takes more time for me, I equivalate it into a dollar and cents value. So I found that yes, I can save, what is it, $2 on 2 rolls of yellow, $4 to $6. So I can save $1 per roll, or I can spend 50 cents in mineral spirits to wipe all the excess off and spend 30 minutes on a big job, where 30 minutes is $50
Yeah.
worth of value for me.
Yeah.
So
And you're doing cleanup. That's no fun.
blue, I'm just peel it off, I'm done.
And he proved that because we did a panel, and he wouldn't do it, and he's like, "I'll do it if we have blue tape." And I'm like, "Blue
Because
tape."
I knew it'd be so much cleanup.
Yeah.
Like, the cleanup would have took longer than the polishing.
So he gets the blue tape out because he had a roll. He happened to have one roll, or a couple rolls, and I taped it off, and he was hitting it with a buffer, and we were not getting any of the goo. And I'm
I was
like,
buffing right across it,
Yeah.
clear across it.
and I'm like, okay, I see exactly what you mean, and I will use the 6 rolls of yellow that I have, but be
Just to use
very
it up, yeah.
be very careful,
Yep.
and then it's going to be switched to blue.
Yep.
So buy blue, don't buy yellow.
There's nothing wrong with using
I
yellow.
know, but
And some people don't do a whole lot of cleanup. You
Yeah.
know, like, I've seen some guys use yellow and have no issues. I have always had issues.
I saw it today when
Yeah.
and then I've noticed with the yellow, if you do run the buff across the yellow and you go to pull it off,
it leaves
rips.
part of it there. Yeah.
It leaves part of it there, like
Yeah.
it's gotten too
Blue
hot.
doesn't do that.
Yeah, and blue, he buffed across it. I pulled it right off. So I'm set on the blue now. I have another question for you before we run out of time.
No, you're good.
Dry aluminum. Explain it to me.
I'm glad you saw it, because it's the worst thing in the world
Yes,
to explain.
It is.
So,
And I'll kind of help. I mean, I get the gist of it now, and
Yeah.
I've saw it. So
I just put out that acid video on my YouTube channel, so I hope a lot of people have
Oh,
watched
yes.
that, because
Yes.
that definitely explains a lot more on dry aluminum. I want to do that video again in 6 months, and after I acidize it the second time, because I have it sitting on my shelf now, just withering away.
Withering away.
So in 6 months, I want to dunk it in acid again and do the exact same experiment and then pull it out and then let it sit another 6 months. So this experiment is going to take a year. As it sits another 6 months, I want that aluminum to just dry out so that I can actually make a video on what dry aluminum is. Because it's hard to explain. Like, acid's a sponge. It soaks up everything it comes in contact with.
Well, let's time out here. I heard you explaining something to Bill about a rim that you had
With pits.
Yes,
Yes.
that could kind of help.
So
I had a customer, a very good customer, years back. He brought me a nasty ball and seat wheel that was just terrible. And I'm like, it was pitted. It had holes in it that were big enough to be probably the head of a penny nail. You know, like the bigger size nail. Not like giant, but a penny.
So it had been acidized and acidized.
For the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And these pits were so big that I told him, I can't get these pits all the way out. Like, it's terrible.
Yeah.
He's like, well, just sand it the best you can. I'm like, listen, it's likely going to crack before it turns out great.
Mm-hmm.
It was that bad. Like, these were craters. If you ran your hand across it, like, it cut your hand. It was that bad.
They're that bad.
And he's like, well, I just want it shiny. I'm like, okay, all right. So I started sanding it. It cracked during the sanding process. Like, I didn't even get to the polishing process. So I called him up.
Because it was brittle and dry.
It was brittle and dry.
Okay.
So I called him up. I'm like, hey, your wheel cracked while I was sanding it. I'm going to have to get you a new one. Like, it's not going to polish because it just cracked.
Mm-hmm.
I heard it. Like, you hear it on the machine when it happens. It, like, ding. And you're like, yeah, it cracked. Like, it's rare. But I've heard it enough times now. I know when it happens. And it's just...
I've seen them.
Wheels are old. When they're that dry, it runs the risk of cracking. I heard it, called him, on to the next situation. He comes back, and I said, can I keep this wheel? Like, I just want to cut it.
Saw it in half.
Saw it in half, and just look at the pores of it. Mm-hmm. He's like, honestly, I'd like to stick around and hang out for that. He goes, honestly, like, this wheel it was constantly losing air.
Oh, really?
So I'm like, okay. So we literally used a Sawzall with a freaking metal blade and just cut through it. You know how long it took to cut a forged wheel like that?
Well, if it was dry and brittle, it might not have taken that long.
It was actually not as long as you think. So we cut through it, and as we're cutting through it, like, one of the pores actually had a hole all the way through to the inside.
So it was leaking air.
The acid had actually worked its way through all the way to the other side. And as I was pointing out to Bill today, actually it was Bill's brother I was pointing it out to. He was standing there, and I'm like, you see some of these little pits here? These little pits, some of them have worked their way further in. Like, we sanded that thing out to 180 rotary, and it wasn't touching some spots.
No,
like, the pits were still deeper than that.
Yeah.
So as acid works its way in, it's now made air pockets so that air can get in. As air gets in, it starts drying that aluminum out. It takes all the moisture out of it, which is why some of the areas I had come on hand polish before we even touched it, because I wanted some moisture in it so that the buff didn't just turn instantly black when we went to buff it.
Yeah.
So dry aluminum is just simply that. Acid's gotten in, or just weather has beaten up on it to the point of it's dried it out enough that it's not accepting of polish.
And it's crazy. We did the rub rails, and we didn't even sand them, but we put the Lumi on, and then even after we cut them twice, they still look dry.
Yeah.
Like, when you cut and color, after you color, the aluminum looks wet to me.
Yeah.
It looks like it's wet.
It feels wet, too.
Yeah. And that rub rail still looked dry to me.
Yeah. And if you felt it still felt a little crusty.
But I don't think acid will see that trailer again.
Yeah, I bet not either.
So
I bet not either.
It'll only get better.
I told you, like, the trailer turned out good, but next year, if he has you come back and touch it up, it's gonna look great.
Yeah.
Because there's moisture in it.
There's moisture in it. And the acid's not going to be hitting it, so it's not going to be trying to pull
the trailer's going to be a lot more acceptable to soaking in a fresh polish next year, since it has moisture in it. You'll knock that thing out in 6 to 8 hours by yourself.
That's what I kind of figured.
I mean, it won't take.
Especially if he has it set up like what he had it set up.
Oh yeah, dude, having it up on the jack stands, and
all ready to go. That was awesome.
It did make me nervous climbing in and out of there, because that suspension was moving quite a bit.
Yeah, I felt it too.
It didn't phase him one bit.
No,
he was hopping around in that thing like nothing.
He's been around.
He's an old school cowboy.
Yeah. I like him.
He's a real trucker cowboy.
Yeah,
Not these new cowboys.
I like him. So basically, a lot of acid will cause aluminum to dry out.
And just
and that was an 06
yeah.
that we polished.
Yeah, it was
So,
6 trailer. 14 years old.
Yeah. So and had been acidized.
He said for the last 10 years.
Yep. So
Not. as
I didn't
heavily
know
as,
that.
like,
He
most
didn't
truck
tell me
washes.
that. So
Not as heavily as like most truck washes, but
no, he doesn't. He says he cuts it down. Yeah, that was dry aluminum.
and dry aluminum will always take 3 to 4 times as much compound.
And it felt like it did.
Well, like I said, even the sandpaper.
Yeah, I couldn't
I
believe
used at least 3 to 4 times as much sandpaper on that
I
trailer.
couldn't believe the stack of, or the trash can of
Dude,
sandpaper.
if we'd have pulled it out, it was
Yeah,
that thick.
yes.
Like, it was
Yeah.
deep.
It's crazy. We had a trash can that we kept throwing our pads in, and it was
600 grit, I never go through a full box. Luckily for this trip, I grabbed 2 boxes.
Thank you.
And even then, luckily you had brought a box too.
Yeah.
I had used both of them and didn't even realize I used both of them.
Yeah.
And then I still used like half of your box.
Oh, I had 2 pieces left.
Oh, really? So
Yeah, and that was
almost
a full
box?
No, that was 2 boxes put together. I did get
Oh
I
my
had 2.
God.
I had bought 2 boxes and put them in one, so I didn't have so many boxes. So you used 100 sheets out of my box. Well,
And I used 100 sheet.
you used 98 sheets out of my box.
And I used 100 out of mine.
Yeah.
So 198 sheets, just 600.
Yeah.
Like 180, I know for sure we went through at, well, plus the 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mom just said the 5-inch.
So when you
600
guys
as
are
well.
think you're using a lot of sandpaper, I mean, we used a lot of sandpaper.
You know, just 198 sheets, that's $100 of sandpaper.
Yeah. I mean, it adds up fast.
Yeah. I mean,
It's crazy. It's crazy.
crazy to think of how much sandpaper you can spend on a big job.
Yeah. And now my mind's blank and I don't know what I was going to ask you again.
And
I
if
was-
you don't have an inventory, I mean,
Sometimes I don't want to know how much I use, but I get it at a pretty good price. So
Yeah.
But after what he did to me, because I wanted to supply everything. And
Nah, listen.
I know, but
We came in on the same page, and we're leaving on the same page. I mean, we did well on this job, and I'm
I think we
happy.
did.
You're happy.
He's happy.
We're good.
We're good.
Yeah.
So
That's all that matters.
and he wants me back as soon as he can.
Yeah. So
So,
even that's even better yet.
yeah. I mean, he's a good old boy.
And he said if he comes through Wisconsin, he's gonna swing in just to say
Yeah,
hi.
I
So,
saw that. I
Yeah.
saw that.
I guess he's got a-
heard that. Niece.
a niece that lives in Sturgeon Bay or something.
Yep.
So he literally would drive right past me to get up there. So I was like, yeah, stop in any time.
That's
He's not stopping in to get any work done, which is good.
And even if he did, I wouldn't care.
Yeah, I know you don't. And for what it's worth, I don't care if any of my guys stop in by you either. I used to get butthurt over that stuff. It doesn't bother me anymore. Like
I think there's
understand
enough
that
to go around.
I can't take care of everybody.
There's enough, yeah, and that's what my thing is too. Being a part timer, and I call myself a
solo.
part timer, and solo, and like today I got 2 calls, and I just told him, I said I had not turn them down, but I said if you get polished by somebody else, because I don't know when I'm not going to tell you a date because if I don't get to you,
Because
then
you keep a list, right?
yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And I said right now I don't know, and I said if you get polished by somebody else, it ain't break my heart.
If I call you when you're on the list and I can't get you in.
You
That's one thing I got away from years ago was a list. Like I used to just keep a list and I'd call everybody when they were next up. And now it's like I have a schedule because I know how long it's going to take. But that's a full-time thing.
Yeah.
Like part-time.
Well, the main reason why I keep a list, and maybe some other guys can relate to this, is that I always try to put myself in a customer's shoes. And when a guy says he'll do something, and with me being the way I am, every time I talk to a guy and I put him on the list, I always tell him, I will call you back. If you don't hear from me for 2 weeks, don't think I forgot about you.
Yeah.
And I always try to call them. And I have the dates that they all have called me.
Yeah.
And I'll go back through my list. Okay, I'm getting close to this guy being 3 weeks. I'll call him to touch base with him.
Yeah.
To let him know
He's
that
coming out.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I haven't forgot about you. And they all are appreciative. I would appreciate that if I was a customer to do that.
See,
So-
for me, I like an exact date because now, if I had a list, it'd be ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't even
Like if
wanna
I kept
see it.
everybody on a list, like, and if you didn't know when your day was, it'd be ridiculous. Like it could be 3 months, 6 months. Like,
But that's the difference between a full-time and a part-time. And, but I just do that. That's something that I feel comfortable with because I don't want to forget a guy. I don't want to tell a guy that I can polish you in a couple weeks or 3 weeks and then forget about him and not meaning to do it.
oh, dude, I feel terrible all the time. Like
Yeah.
I forget about people all the time, and I don't do it on purpose. Like,
yeah.
there's very few people. I have a no polish list. Like, they've burnt me or they've no call, no showed a number of times.
Oh,
and like,
yeah.
if you call, I'm not going to call you back. You have to call me and you have to catch me on a good day because like you are on my do not polish list.
So I do
It's a
that.
short list, but I still have that list.
I do that just to, let them know that I haven't. And a lot of times when I call them, it's a 2-minute conversation. Hey, yeah, Chase, just letting you know I haven't forgot about you. I'll be getting to you.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks, buddy. And it's
I
that
do know a
saying.
bunch of guys that have lists too. I mean, it works well for the guys that are part-time or like I'm booked till the end of September.
Well, a lot happens between Monday and Thursday
Yeah.
with my regular job.
Yeah.
So
If you can't do stuff during the week.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want, like I said, I don't want to skip over somebody and not intentionally forget them, but forget them.
My wife hates my schedule sometimes because it's like she needs to plan the year in December. Because as soon as I start booking people, it's over. Like I'll book every day because I'm a workaholic.
That's the way I.
And my wife hates it because if she wants to take a vacation, it's like, all right, I gotta find a week in the middle of nowhere where nobody's on the schedule, and even then, my weekends book up like months in
So
advance.
tell me, you do 6 days a week? Do you take Sunday to be, or do you?
No, I'm 8 days a week.
Are you?
Like when it's time to make hay, I'm there.
I don't
I'm
blame
cutting. Like winters, and I don't know. This year I kind of throttled back a little bit. Like I realized it's hard on my guys to work 7 days a week, but I myself will still
We'll
work
do.
7
You'll
days
go
a
into the
week.
shop and.
I'll work a truck by myself on a Sunday and
Yeah.
let the guys have off on Sunday, or I'll let the guys have off. Like what I did this year was if I had a cancellation, like middle of the week or something, like if I had a Wednesday or a Tuesday and somebody called in, I'd tell Kavan, like, you can go home for the day and just have today off. And it was like Tuesdays or Wednesdays were our weekend. And I'll work Sundays and Saturdays because I know a lot of truck drivers are home Saturdays and
Yeah, I
Sundays.
know.
And it's like,
Yep.
I hate to tell them no when I know they're going to be home and it's more convenient for them instead of having to take a day off during the week. But there's only 2 weekend days. Well, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's 3, I guess. But those are the ones that book up the fastest.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
then I'm still stuck with putting people during the middle of the week. And we do a lot of big fleets yet. So like a lot of our fleet guys, they're like,
The
yeah, we can
trucks are
rotate
home.
2 trucks home during the middle of the week. So we can have 2 trucks this day, 2 trucks that day, 2 trucks that day, So our midweek stuff books up early in spring and it books up busy in the fall because everybody wants to get in
Before
to
winter.
get that winter stuff off, and the guys that want to get them ready for the winter to be here.
Yep.
So it's like, I don't know, you can't win both ways. And our client list has gotten too big. I need like 6 more good polishers to keep up with everybody that we have in the area. Like I said, we've got 12 local polishers that we compete with on a regular basis, and we're still busy. Crazy
That's good.
busy.
That's good. Then I think a lot of that's the reputation you build up,
Yeah.
and that's not a bad thing.
No,
That's
it
not
is a
bad
good thing.
That's a good.
And I'm grateful for it. It's one of those things that like I would do it all over again.
That you told me that you would give away all the show stuff and just be a polisher.
I would. I enjoy my show family. I call them my show family. I really do enjoy the show family. There's a lot more drama around the shows. But with that said, the people are
They're good people.
they're good people. There are a lot of really good people.
Yes, there is.
And I miss those guys when we're not, like this year, not having the
I know,
shows. It's
it's
just been
been-
killing me. Because like some of the people, the only time I saw them was at the shows.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't change that for the world. But
You could deal with less
if I
drama.
didn't have shows, this year my profit margins are up 30%. 30%.
Because you've done more work.
And less overhead. Like, I've done less work this year. Less work than we have in past years. Our truck numbers are down this year.
Are they?
And not because we couldn't do more, it's just I'm understaffed this year. We've been low staffed all year.
COVID.
So, well, COVID really didn't slow us down all that much.
I know, I noticed that too. It actually might have sped me up.
Yeah, because more people have been around.
Yeah.
But we haven't gotten to do some of our bigger fleets because I wasn't able to do mobile
yes.
this whole year. But
you're essential, dude. You keep them trucks shining.
I know, but I got one cop in our area.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time.
But yeah, our truck numbers are down, but our overhead's down as well. So like, I don't have the show expense. And like I said in one of my past videos, it cost me $60,000 to go to shows. Like, I lost $60,000 going to shows.
See, and that's what I did.
Keeping that $60,000
from our side,
profit.
it looks all fame and glory, cake and ice cream, and
I got all the toys. I got a nice truck. Like, I got a loan on the truck. I got a loan on my house.
You're
just like everybody else.
Us. You're just like us.
Yeah.
You're just a normal guy.
I work my butt off to pay the loans.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're just like us.
It's just, that's all there is to it. Like, we're all in that daily grind. You know, some of us got loans. Some of us were able to pay it cash. I was not one of those guys that was able to pay it cash. I didn't.
No.
My dad didn't give me my business. My parents didn't give me a giant inheritance, and
no.
I had to start this thing on my own with $200 paycheck that I had when I left the truck wash. Like, I started this thing on $200. Like, that's
about what I had. No, I probably had more than that because I bought all the wrong buffs. So I probably had more than that. And my wife was like, see the credit card bill, you know, and she's like, what are you buying?
Dude, my wife used to run and pick supplies up for me. Like,
she did?
I'd be at a job site and like, I need like $2 today. Can you go get some for me? She's like, yeah. Can I stop by and get some cash? Like,
my wife
I'm
would
not
do
gonna
that.
get paid until tonight.
But she was seeing, you know, I wasn't doing it for money back then. I was doing it for my own truck, and she'd see $100 in buffs, and well, she didn't know what they were.
You're spending this money on yourself.
Yeah, and she's like, what are you buying? And I'm like, stuff to polish my truck. Are they reimbursing? No. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, and I was buying the wrong stuff. I actually, I still have the first bar that I ever bought.
Really?
Yeah, the Zephyr Blue Bar.
Really?
I still got it, yeah.
I'd have burnt it up somewhere. It's actually not a terrible bar.
Well, I just thought I'd keep it for a moment. You know? It caused me a lot of headaches.
I've got a lot of my first stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a collector of all things garbage, I'm pretty sure.
I just got it. It's up on my shelf, and it's got a lot of dust on it.
A lot of the famous people I've met, I had them sign something so I could keep it. I have Craig Hurd from Hurd Built owns all the first bottles of my new products.
I was gonna say, yeah.
When I was talking about developing my own, he's like, Evan, I want the first bottles. And I'm like, no, first bottles are going on my shelf. He's like, no, I'll buy them. He's like, I just want to be able to say,
I have the first.
He's like, I want to support you. He's like, I want to be able to say I have the first ones. And I'm like, I don't know if I want somebody else to have that. So do you got
number twos?
I do.
Yeah.
I have all the number twos sitting on my shelf. And he jokes around that he's going to sell me back the number ones when he wants to retire. And I'm like, no, honestly, you can keep them. I appreciate the support. And I'm very grateful for his friendship and his mentorship. He's been a good role model in my life this last year and a half, in a time when I needed an extra person in my life to kind of help me through.
It's always good to have them people.
He's gone through a lot of the same situations I went through, so it was kind of nice to have that guy that had that experience to be able to help me through that situation. So, Craig, I hope you're not listening to this because it'll inflate your head even more and I won't be able to get you in or out of anywhere. But no, I think it was great, and yeah, he holds all the number ones. And anytime we release a new product,
he wants it.
It's part of his deal that I have to.
You just send it right to him.
Yeah, we just send him a bill. He cuts me the check. It's like, whatever. It is what it is.
Then you signed it too.
Yeah, and he told me I had to write number 1 on the bottom so that it was
legit,
and I had to sign it. So
that's pretty cool though.
He buys number 1 and number 3 of every bottle, and then he uses number 3 in his inventory.
Sweet.
So he has officially owned all the number 1s, and I've got all the number 2s sitting on my shelf at home, except my glass cleaner. That I have number 1.
deal.
because that was made.
That was before.
That was made before Craig. Yeah, before I even knew who Craig was.
How did you meet him?
Crazy story. I did that how to properly wash a UTV video,
Oh yeah.
and we kind of did it as a joke. Because I thoroughly love I love washing stuff. Like, my original passion was to wash. Like, I had no interest in metal polishing at all.
Because that's what you did. You
That's what I
washed
did.
trucks.
I did that since I was, I don't know, I think I get a business not a business license, but a worker permit at like 13. And I started working in a local place at like, it was either 12 or 13. And that was the only thing they'd let us do because we were young kids. They'd only let us wash. So that was my first passion. And that passion fell through all the way through.
That was my first job too.
Washing?
Yeah, at a car dealership.
That's
And
funny.
I hated every minute of it.
Oh, I love washing. I still love washing. So I made this the YouTube UTV, how to wash a UTV. He's a big UTV guy. He builds UTVs.
Yes, some awesome UTVs.
And he happened to just be YouTubing. He had some issues with the model that he has, so he was YouTubing how to properly wash the specific UTV that he owns, because he was having issues getting mud out of the panels and all that stuff. So he was YouTubing it, and he happened to stumble across my video, and he
Just like
watched it, and it was like 20 or 30 minutes long, whatever it was, and he watched it, and he was like, this is a thorough, well done video. And he always jokes around with me. He's like, I watched that video and I was like, this dude's legit. Like, he knows what he's talking about. He did it. It came out clean. He's like, I need to deal with this guy. So he used that video, learned from it, posted his own video on Instagram, tagged me in it, and I was like, I had no idea who he was. But when I watched that video, I was like, dude, this guy just gave me like big props on how he said my video was really well done.
And I did that video as a joke.
He got he got his inspiration from the video, and then tagged me in it to give me credit for it. And like, not a lot of people do that. Like, I do get some people give me credit for what they're talking about or what they've done, and I'm grateful for anybody that does. And I'm not ungrateful for anybody that doesn't, because like I said, I don't need the fame, I don't need the glory. You can keep it. But it was one of those, like, he went out of his way to give credit, to say thank you. Like, it improved his life in how he washed, right? Like, it's such a minor thing, but to him it was a big thing. And like I said, that's why I do this, is so that maybe one little thing can change somebody's life and make their life better. And for him, that's what it was. Like, it made his washing experience better. Like, he was a better washer when he was done. And he tagged me in that video. I reached out to him on his post. I commented on it. I was like, dude, killer video, well done, thank you for the tag. And then I DM'd him and I said, dude, if you ever need anything, any product questions, anything, here's my cell phone number. And I sent him my cell phone number, much like I do with a lot of other people. And he sent me a thank you. He's like, dude, I can't believe you just gave me your personal cell phone number. I'm like, I give everybody my personal cell phone number. It's posted on every social media account I have. So it's like, it's not a big secret. But I'm like, I'm glad to help you out. If you ever need it, reach out. I will help you out. He just happened to be going to Daytona. Keenan and I were going to Daytona to detail. And he hit me up. He's like, hey, are you going to Daytona? I'm like, yeah, we're going to Daytona. He's like, would you put me on your detail schedule? I'm like, dude, 100%. His truck is like
immaculate anyway.
Top 5, top 3, like, craziest detailed builds. Like, the most level of detail. And his is silver and chrome. Like,
can't
chromed out everything.
Can't get much better than that.
I like shiny like a squirrel on a nut. Like,
.
So when he asked me if I detail it, I was like, absolutely. Like, I'd love to wash all that chrome and like make sure that thing's on point for Daytona. Like, Daytona's a big show. So we put him on the schedule. Instantaneously, when we met him and his wife, like, we hit it off right away. Like, good people, down to earth, just bam, here we are.
just hit it off instantaneous, and it was an instant friendship. And then I asked them if they would drive down to the beach to do a photo shoot.
With the truck.
And he's like, well, I've never really driven in the rain, and it looks like it might rain today. I'm like, if you don't want to do it, it's no big deal. He said, no, I'll do it. I'm telling you that if we end up stuck in the rain, you're the reason why we've driven in the rain. And sure enough, we got caught in the rain on the way home, and he ended up driving back to Daytona truck meet in the rain. And I felt terrible because, I realized it had never gotten wet other than washed before. But we did all that. We did an awesome photo shoot at the beach. His truck was immaculate, on point, and him and his wife Heather have been family ever since. I mean, we solidified our friendship in the conversations we had during that photo shoot. And it was during a transition period in my life where
as much as I say social media is bad, it can be good.
Yeah. I've honestly made a lot of great friends and a lot of great relationships through people that have found me through social media. It can be a downfall because you could definitely get swallowed up whole by it.
Yes. Yeah, and I try not to.
Me too. I mean, I try to limit myself as much as possible, but there's times where you just have to let yourself get soaked into it, and you end up meeting somebody like Craig, who ends up being. Honestly, I just flew out for his daughter's wedding a couple weeks ago, and it was awesome. Like, out on the dance floor, she's got all of her friends there, he's got his friends there, and their whole family, we were all just dancing together, just us for a couple songs, because it was we were reliving some of our time that we had at Vegas at SEMA last year, and it was Craig took a picture and he sent it to me. He was like, out of all the people here, my family was focused on you for that minute. I'm like, no, I appreciate that, because I know they all treat me like family. I try to treat them all like family. And then that night, I called him on the way back to his house, because of course he had to stay at his house as well. Mm-hmm. And I called him, and I was like, dude, if you want help working tomorrow so that your daughter can have the day off, well, his youngest daughter, not the one that got married. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'll go to work with you so that she can sleep in. Yeah, sure. I'm like, yeah, Tammy will hang out with your wife. They'll make a good connection. It'll be fine. We'll go and work. So I went and helped him install his railings from 7 in the morning till noon.
That's cool.
So it was yeah. He calls all the time. I saw he just texted me.
Did he just text you? I wondered if somebody knew. But I just wondered that he seems like I follow him.
He called yesterday just to check on me because all this stuff that's going on in Kenosha.
Yeah. Jeez, Louise, dude.
Yeah, he called just to check.
Well, I'm gonna probably call you and make sure you make it back home because you got to drive right through this stuff.
He's like, I don't know how far that is from you. I'm like, yeah, it's probably an hour and 45 minutes, almost 2 hours. So it's it's not close.
Well, it's in Milwaukee now too.
Yeah, so. I saw that. We'll be driving through it, and we'll be driving through it in the day. So
I know that's
deal, it is what it is.
Well, I'm good. I mean, you've answered all my questions.
Well, I appreciate you being on, and I know we got a lot of really good content, and I hope some of the solo polishers, and any polishers in general, I hope they get some good information out of some of the stuff that you brought up and some of the topics that the two of us had brought up together. And I think there was a lot of good information in this one as well, and I'm proud to have had you a part of this. I mean,
I'm proud to be a part of it.
You become a good friend, and you become part of my family. So I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know it was probably about 2 hours worth already.
Yeah.
When you could have been sleeping.
Well, I already warned you about that. I could keep going. So.
Me too. I hope to have you on again sometime in the future. Hopefully with a collaboration, maybe at the shop during Waupun Truck Show. I'd like to have you up one of these years for Waupun Truck Show week when all the boys are in town anyways. Nebraska, Zach and Parker and Keenan.
I'd love to meet all them guys.
I'd love to have you up and just shoot the breeze with all of us together in one place, because those guys are awesome people, and I want to do a group conversation podcast. I know it's going to get hectic because there's so many voices going on.
Fun.
But I think it'd be fun.
Your Nebraska boys had me laugh. They had me laughing.
They're wild.
When I listened to it, I loved it. It was good. I'm not as funny as them, but You get me going, I could probably keep up with it.
Oh, I bet. That's what I mean. Is I think it'd be fun. So I'd like to have you on again if you do it.
Oh yeah.
And no, I appreciate you being on this time because we got a lot of good content. And,
It was a good couple days.
A lot of good information.
Good couple days.
But awesome. We'll leave it there, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yes.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate
you.
you.
That was awesome.